I stood in the Yanku Hall of the Qin family estate in Yunsong City. My father, Qin Tianxiong, sat in the high seat of honor. To the right sat our clansmen, and to the left were the members of the Jiang family, the most powerful clan in the city. The air was filled with the smell of wine and the sounds of forced laughter. Suddenly, a girl in a silk dress stood up from the Jiang family's side. This was Jiang Yunlan. She was beautiful, talented, and the daughter of the Jiang family. Every young man in the city dreamed of her. Qin Futian, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The Heaven Sword sect is recruiting new disciples in Yunsong City next month. Are you confident you can get in? The hall went silent. Every eye turned to me. I sat there in my white robes, lean and calm. To them, I was just the young master of the Qin family. I opened my eyes slowly and looked at her. I should have some confidence, I replied casually. Jiang Yunlan sneered. The whole city knows your dantian is shattered. You're a cripple. How can a cripple pass the sect's entrance exam? She leaned in, her eyes cold. Let me tell you something else. I've already been scouted by an inner sect elder. I'll be an inner disciple soon. You aren't worthy of me anymore. Do you understand? A cripple? Not worthy? I felt a cold laugh rising in my chest. It was true that in the last war for family resources, the original Qin Futian's dantian was destroyed. He had actually died on Phoenix Fall Mountain. But that was the day I woke up in this body. I wasn't just some young master. I was the Futian God Emperor, a being who had stood at the peak of 10,000 worlds for eons. My soul had drifted through the void and landed here by chance. I had seen goddesses whose beauty could topple empires. Compared to them, Jiang Yunlan was nothing. And yet, here she was, telling me I wasn't worthy. So, what's your point? I asked, glancing at her with total indifference. If you had any self-awareness, she snapped, you'd bring out our marriage contract and destroy it right now in front of everyone. The hall erupted. My clansmen looked furious. This wasn't just an insult to me. She was rubbing the Qin family's face in the dirt. My father's face turned purple, the veins on his forehead bulging. Then, the head of the Jiang family, Jiang Zhinshan, stood up with a fake smile. Everyone, stay calm. There's no need to be so dramatic. He turned to his daughter. Yunlan, don't be so harsh. We don't want the city saying the Jiangs are heartless. Yes, father, she said, catching his drift. She looked back at me. Qin Futian, I'll give you a chance. If you can pass the exam next month and become an outer disciple, the marriage contract stays. But if you fail, it's over. Jiang Zhinshan chuckled. Futian, she's given you a chance. If you can't grab it, you can't blame anyone else. I saw right through them. They knew a man with a broken dantian couldn't pass. They wanted to look merciful to the public while making me a laughingstock when I inevitably failed. So, Qin Futian, what do you think? Jiang Zhinshan pressured me. I think it's a bad idea, I said. Jiang Yunlan's voice grew even colder. Why bother? You know there's no future for us. I let out a sharp laugh. You're right. There is no future. But why is it that if I fail, the contract is void, but if I pass, it stays valid? I have a better idea. I stood up, my voice echoing through the hall. If I pass the exam, the marriage contract is still void. But not because you rejected me. It's because I, Qin Futian, am divorcing you. The room went dead silent. Jiang Yunlan's face turned pale, then red with rage. A cripple was claiming he would divorce her? Ridiculous, she spat. You're dreaming. A cripple passing the exam? You're just talking big because you're embarrassed. The Jiang family members started laughing. They thought I was just a stubborn kid trying to save face. Fine, Jiang Zhinshan said, waving a hand. A man's word is his bond. On the day of the exam, bring the contract. You can tell the whole city then. I hope you don't regret it. Don't worry, I said calmly. I know exactly what to do. Jiang Zhinshan smirked, his eyes full of mockery. He clearly thought I was just young and arrogant. He didn't believe for a second that I could pass. To him, the outcome was already decided. Chief Qin, everyone, will take our leave, Jiang Zhinshan said, bowing slightly before walking out. I hope you keep your word, Jiang Yunlan added, tossing her hair like a proud swan as she followed him. Don't shrink away at the last second. As soon as they were gone, the hall exploded into noise again. My father slammed his hand onto the table, shattering the heavy wood into splinters. Qin Futian, kneel. he roared, his voice shaking the walls. He glared at me, his face contorted with rage. I narrowed my eyes and looked him straight in the face. Kneel? For what? For what? He sneered. If you hadn't become a useless cripple, would we be suffering this humiliation? Why should I kneel? I asked, my voice cold. I stared back at my father, Qin Tianxiong. I wasn't the weak boy he remembered. Zhang Yunlan didn't come here to break the engagement on a whim, I said with a sneer. I became a useless person because I chose to. Besides, the Jiang family brought this up while Jiang Zhinshan was standing right here. You didn't dare vent your anger on him then. So why are you taking it out on me now? Presumptuous. Qin Tianxiong roared, laughing from pure rage. You still dare to talk back? You are the young master. You should know that the family's interests come before everything else. A thin, middle-aged man with sunken, predatory eyes stepped forward. It was the seventh elder, Qin Tianxiong. The patriarch is right, he hissed. Qin Futian has no sense of the big picture. He acts on impulse and brings shame to us all. In my opinion, we should strip him of his title as young master and cut off all his cultivation resources. A wave of agreement washed through the hall. I agree with the seventh elder, one cousin shouted. He's arrogant and has no respect for his elders. He doesn't deserve the title, another elder added. They looked at me like I was a piece of trash that needed to be swept away. I started to laugh. It was a sharp, bitter sound that cut through their shouting. If I remember correctly, I said, my voice rising, you were the ones who came to my door years ago, begging me to take the position of young master. Why? Because of my talent. For years, I fought your battles. I bled for the Qin name. I grabbed my left sleeve and ripped it upward, exposing a jagged, hideous scar that coiled around my shoulder like a centipede. When I was 11, at the Battle of Mount Donghua, I killed 3 geniuses from the Bai family to secure 3 iron mines for us. I almost lost this arm. I swept my hand across my chest, tearing my robe open. My torso was a map of violence, 18 distinct scars from when I held off a mob of bandits to save the family's trade caravan at 13. And last year, the fight for Shilling Maishan. I began listing every sacrifice. Even this time, at Phoenix Mountain, I didn't lose my Dantian for fun. I did it to snatch that earth-rank cultivation technique for the Qin family. I shook my head, feeling a deep sense of pity for the me that used to inhabit this body. He gave everything, only to be slaughtered like a dog once he was no longer useful. Enough, Qin Tianxiong shouted, his face turning a sickly shade of purple. He knew I was right, but he didn't care. You need to understand something, Qin Futian. If the Qin family hadn't taken you in from the Black Wind Mountains, you'd be dead. Your fame, your life, it all belongs to us. Making a few contributions is the least you could do. Exactly, Qin Tianxiong added, his eyes cold. At the end of the day, you're just a stray dog we picked up. Now that you've lost your bite, you think you can bark at your masters. The air in the room suddenly froze. A terrifying aura erupted from my body, so heavy and oppressive that Qin Tianxiong and the others actually stumbled back, their mouths snapping shut. For a second, they saw something in my eyes that shouldn't belong to a mortal. A stray dog. I whispered, then shook my head. I had seen this coming. Ever since I was carried back with a shattered Dantian, their attitudes had shifted. They only kept me around because they hoped to use my marriage to the Jiang family to climb the social ladder. Now that the engagement was off, I had zero utility left to them. I looked at them with the eyes of a god emperor. To me, they were nothing but ants. I didn't need to waste my forbidden techniques on them yet. Once my strength returned, I would crush them under my heel. You want the title? I reached into my robes, pulled out the young master's jade command, and tossed it at Qin Tianxiong's feet. Take it. I never cared about it anyway. I turned my back on them and walked out. A summer insect can't imagine ice, and a frog in a well can't conceive of the ocean. If the Qin family had shown even a shred of loyalty, I would have granted them a fortune beyond their wildest dreams. But they didn't deserve it. Soon, they would realize exactly how stupid they had been. Outside, I took a deep breath of fresh air. Being a god emperor for so long had shielded me from the raw ugliness of human nature. This rebirth was showing me things more clearly than ever. I returned to my small, secluded house and sat down cross-legged. For the last few days, I had been focusing on stabilizing this broken body. It was a mess, shattered dantian, 6 broken meridians, and over a dozen fractured bones, not to mention the internal scarring from years of war. But today, the healing was finished. I was ready. I closed my eyes and sank into my consciousness. Deep within my dantian, a dark gold-bronze cauldron began to shimmer. This was the Fortune Divine Furnace. I had found it in a forbidden zone in the God realm, and somehow, it had followed my soul to this world. Carved into the side of the furnace was a technique, the heaven-devouring fortune script. In my past life, I was already a god emperor when I found it. To practice this script, one had to start from zero and have a completely shattered dantian. I hadn't been willing to destroy my own cultivation back then. But now, this body was the perfect vessel. It was as if fate had planned this. I began to circulate the mantra. Boom. The air around me trembled. Spiritual energy from every direction began to swirl, forming a massive vortex with me at the center. My body became a bottomless pit, greedily drinking in the power at a terrifying speed. The suction was so intense it created a low, haunting whistle in the air. The speed was terrifying. This was just a low-level world. Back in the God realm, where the energy was thick, the speed would be unimaginable. It was no wonder this technique was called the heaven-devouring fortune script. It felt like it wanted to swallow the entire universe into that furnace. Even as a former God Emperor, I was stunned. Absorbing energy like this at the body refining stage defied all logic. But what happened next shocked me even more. The energy didn't flow toward my shattered dantian to repair it like I expected. Instead, every drop of power was sucked directly into the Fortune Divine Furnace. This went on for hours. I sat there, a human vortex, until finally, a single, crystal-clear droplet formed inside the furnace. I frowned. Hours of absorption and my cultivation hadn't budged. My body hadn't been nourished at all. All that energy had produced just one tiny drop of liquid. What was the point? Curious, I sent a thought to the furnace. The droplet floated out and instantly melted into my meridians. A massive surge of vitality exploded through my blood, rushing into my limbs, my organs, and my bones. I let out a soft groan. It felt incredible. It was like a wave of warmth washing over me, followed by a numbing, tingling sensation. In less than 15 minutes, my lingering injuries were gone. Not just the recent ones, either. Old scars and hidden ailments from years of fighting were wiped clean. But that was just the beginning. Suddenly, a tearing pain ripped through me. The liquid turned violent. It began systematically destroying my blood vessels, my bones, and my organs. Then, it rebuilt them. Destroy, rebuild. Destroy, rebuild. My body was undergoing a brutal, total transformation. By the time the process stopped, the sun had set. It was dark outside. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of power I hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if this body had been a dried-up wasteland for 10,000 years and was finally seeing rain. I threw a punch into the empty air. Boom. The air exploded. A faint glow shimmered on my knuckles. I stared at my hand. I had already manifested fist glow. Even in my past life, this would have surprised me. To project energy like that, a martial artist usually had to reach the Chi-Si realm. In this world, the path started with channel opening, then Chi-Si, True Essence, and God Gate. Each had 9 levels. I checked my progress. 2 of my 9 major meridians were completely cleared. Level 2 of the channel opening realm. I sighed. The speed was just okay. If anyone else had heard that, they would have spat blood in frustration. Going from 0 to level 2 in half a day was unheard of. But I was a God Emperor. I knew the shortcuts. The only thing holding me back was the pathetic amount of spiritual energy in this world. Still, the physical change was worth it. I looked at my bare chest. The ugly, jagged scars were gone. My skin was flawless, and my muscles were lean and hard, rippling with explosive power. I was much stronger now than I had been at this level in my previous life. The Fortune Divine Furnace was the key. My dantian was broken, so the furnace had simply replaced it. It took in raw energy, refined it into that fortune water, and used that to forge my body. It was dozens of times more effective than normal cultivation. If 1 drop did this, what would 2 drops do? A creak interrupted my thoughts. The courtyard door opened. I quickly pulled on my shirt. Young master, how are you feeling today? It was Xiao Yao. Her full name was Qin Qingyao. She had been my maid for years. She walked in and lit the oil lamp, her brow furrowed with worry when she saw me sitting up. "You should be resting," she scolded gently. "Don't get up unless you have to." Since my dantian was destroyed, everyone who used to flatter me had turned their backs. Only Xiao Yao stayed. She took care of everything without a single complaint. In my past life, I was a martial arts nut. I climbed to the top of the world but ignored the people around me. This time, through the memories of this body, I was learning what it felt like to actually be cared for. "Eat your dinner first," she said, opening a food box. "I got this from the kitchen." It was a feast compared to what we usually had: stir-fried pork, braised fish, greens, and lotus seed soup. She also pulled out a new white robe. It was made of fine silk with delicate gold stitching on the cuffs and collar. "I haven't seen you in new clothes for a long time," she whispered. "I made this myself. Try it on after you eat." I looked at her. "Sit down. Let's eat together." "Oh no, young master," she said, patting her stomach and forcing a smile. "I already ate. I'm stuffed. You think I don't know?" I asked quietly. "You've been eating plain steamed buns from the kitchen every day. You've been working extra jobs just to save money for my medicine and this food." Xiao Yao's face turned bright red. "Young master, you already knew?" Xiao Yao asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Of course I did," I said. I walked over and took her hand in mine. It should have been the soft, delicate hand of a young girl. Instead, it was covered in rough calluses and cracks. To pay for my medicine, she worked herself to the bone at the Spirit Pill Pavilion all day. Then she stayed up all night sewing my clothes. She thought I didn't notice, but I had seen her many times, hunched over an oil lamp, her fingers trembling with exhaustion. I'd seen the needle prick her skin, making her flinch and grit her teeth in pain. She never made a sound. She was terrified of waking me up. "Xiao Yao, I'm a cripple now," I said quietly. "I'm not the young master of the Qin family anymore. Why do you keep suffering for me?" "I don't care," she said stubbornly. "No matter what happens to you, I will always stay by your side. I will serve you forever." I nodded slowly and didn't say another word. But deep inside, a vow took root. Since she refused to leave me, I would give her a destiny beyond her wildest dreams. The next morning, the sky was just beginning to turn gray. I stood in the courtyard, feeling the surge of power in my veins. After a night of cultivation, I had broken through again. I was now at the 3rd level of the pulse-opening realm. It had taken 1 drop of creation water to reach the 2nd level. To reach the 3rd, it took 2 drops. The spiritual energy in this world was far too thin. The creation furnace had spent all night absorbing energy just to condense those 2 drops. It seemed the furnace had drained the immediate area dry, slowing down the process. I needed a way to get more drops. I wondered if the furnace could melt down treasures or herbs directly into creation water. I glanced at the room next door. Xiao Yao's room was empty. The girl had already left for work. I sighed softly, touched by her dedication. As the first ray of sunlight pierced through the red clouds, I sat down and began to breathe. I wasn't using the heaven-devouring art this time. Instead, I practiced the turtle breath technique. This was a secret method I relied on in my past life. By inhaling the purple qi from the very first light of dawn, my progress would double. Back then, I wasn't a natural genius. I was average. I reached the peak of the martial world through sheer, stubborn persistence. But persistence isn't enough for greatness. You need luck, too. The turtle breath technique was my greatest stroke of luck. It sounded simple, but it was God tier. It didn't just extend your life. It silently reshaped your body and improved your hidden talent. The heaven-devouring art was too violent for now. It would suck the air out of the room and attract unwanted attention. The turtle breath technique was the perfect balance, soft, steady, and deep. While I practiced, Xiao Yao arrived at the Spirit Pill Pavilion. It was a freezing autumn morning. Frost coated the cobblestone streets. She walked fast to keep her blood moving, but her nose and ears were still stinging from the cold. Inside the pavilion, she stopped in front of a glass display case. Her eyes lingered on a spirit accumulation pill. My broken dantian needed help, and she believed this pill was the answer. But it cost 100 silver taels. She bit her lip. She had saved 70 taels so far. She was still 30 short. She already had 3 jobs, but at this rate, It would take another 6 months to save enough. She hurried to the alchemy rooms. Her morning task was to scrub the furnaces, tables, and tools before the alchemists arrived. Those men had terrible tempers. If they found a single speck of dust, they would scream. Xiao Yao didn't mind the yelling. She just couldn't afford to lose the job. 2 hours later, after the rooms were spotless, a supervisor called the workers together. Master Wu needs a furnace tender for his next batch, the supervisor announced. Who wants to sign up? The other workers immediately looked away. It was a nightmare job. You had to manage the fires for the apprentices, the heat was unbearable, and the hours went from midnight until dawn. Worse, Master Wu's apprentice, Su Yong, was a known bully. If the fire wasn't perfect, he'd slap you or kick you just for the fun of it. The pay is 3 silver taels a month, the supervisor added. That was double the normal rate. I'll do it, Xiao Yao said. Are you crazy? A girl next to her whispered. You already have 3 jobs. You'll kill yourself. The supervisor frowned. Xiao Yao, you're already spread thin. Can you actually handle this? I can, she said firmly. I won't sleep if I have to. I'll get the work done. In her head, she was doing the math. 3 extra taels meant she could buy my pill months sooner. She didn't stop to think if a basic pill could actually fix a destroyed dantian. She just wanted to try. Fine, the supervisor said. You're a hard worker. You start tonight. Report to young Master Su later. That afternoon, after finishing her first shift, Xiao Yao hurried back to the Qin estate. She had to prepare my dinner before starting her new night job. She ran into the kitchen and greeted the cook with a tired but bright smile. The kitchen cook was a kind man. He greeted Xiao Yao with a warm smile, just like he did every day. She scanned the counter. Her eyes landed on the usual spread. There were 3 plain steamed buns, 2 side dishes, a bowl of soup, and a portion of white rice. The rice and dishes were for me. The 3 buns were all she would eat for the entire day. Uncle Lu, what kind of meat is that? Xiao Yao asked. She noticed a dish with a rich, savory aroma that smelled incredibly nourishing. That's snow-patterned tiger meat, the cook replied with a grin. It's reserved for the clan head and the elders. Xiao Yao leaned in. It must be expensive, right? Of course, Uncle Lu said. A single ounce costs 5 silver taels. Normal people can't afford it. It's powerful medicine. It helps with cultivation and can even repair a warrior's internal injuries. Xiao Yao's eyes lit up at the word repair. Uncle Lu, could I buy a portion? I have the silver. In the Qin estate, food was strictly ranked. Masters ate like royalty, while servants ate scraps. But if you had the money, you could buy better food for yourself. You silly girl, Uncle Lu sighed. You're buying this for your young master, aren't you? Xiao Yao stuck out her tongue. She didn't deny it. The meat was too expensive for her to ever dream of eating it herself. He's already lost his cultivation, Uncle Lu whispered, shaking his head. This meat won't fix a shattered dantian. I think it might help a little, she said, offering a hopeful smile. Uncle Lu couldn't resist her persistence. Fine, I'll give you a portion. I have to charge you. That's the rule, but I'll give you an extra large serving. Xiao Yao's eyes crinkled into little crescents. She thanked him profusely, tucked the food into a stone container, and hurried back toward our quarters. Stop right there. A man blocked her path. It was Qin Hongfu, the estate's head steward. He glared at her with cold, predatory eyes. Open the box. Xiao Yao had no choice. When the lid came off, the steward's face turned into a mask of rage. How dare you, he barked. Who gave you permission to take this much food from the kitchen? He lunged forward to grab the box. Xiao Yao ducked away, clutching it to her chest. Manager, this is for the young master and me. I bought the tiger meat with my own money. Don't lie to me, Qin Hongfu sneered. The clan head ordered that the waste, Qin Futian, be cut off from all rations today. And this meat costs 5 silver per ounce. You're a servant. You didn't buy this. You stole it. I didn't steal it. You can ask Uncle Lu. Shut up. The steward's hand flew out. Slap. Qin Hongfu was a warrior at the 4th level of the pulse condensing realm. The force of the blow was devastating. Xiao Yao was sent spinning to the ground. Blood leaked from the corner of her mouth. The stone box hit the dirt, and food scattered everywhere. Xiao Yao burst into tears. Not for herself, but for the ruined meal. Eat, eat, eat. That's all that useless waste knows how to do, the steward spat. He wants to live off the Qin family for free. Not on my watch. Xiao Yao sobbed harder. That was my dinner. She curled her body into a ball, desperately shielding the small bowl of tiger meat with her chest. But the steward wasn't finished. He reached down, grabbed her by her thin shoulders, and violently ripped the bowl from her hands. Giving meat this good to a cripple is a crime. He set the meat aside and grabbed Xiao Yao's chin, forcing her to look at him. A disgusting, lecherous grin spread across his face. You know, you're a pretty little thing, he whispered, his fingers tracing her cheek. Following that loser Futian will get you nowhere. Why don't you follow me instead? I'll make sure you eat the best food every night. Xiao Yao felt a wave of pure revulsion. She hated him for what he said, and she hated him for destroying my meal. She gathered every bit of strength she had and spat a mouthful of bloody phlegm right into his face. The steward froze. Then, he exploded. You little bitch. I'll teach you your place. He began to rain blows down on her. Slap, slap, slap. He didn't stop until her face was swollen and bruised. Finally, he delivered a brutal kick to her ribs. Xiao Yao flew through the air and slammed into the dirt. She curled up, gasping for air as blood stained the ground beneath her. That was the moment I turned the corner. I saw her lying there. I saw him standing over her. In that heartbeat, a terrifying, cold, killing intent erupted from deep within my soul. A crowd had gathered to watch the drama. Most of them were just enjoying the show. On one side was the powerful head steward. On the other, a lowly servant girl. No one was going to speak up for her. Suddenly, Qin Hongfu shivered. A chill ran down his spine like a blade of ice. He spun around and saw me walking toward him. My eyes were void of any emotion. For a second, his face went pale. He remembered the old me. He remembered the young master who was a genius, the one who was ruthless on the battlefield. Young master, he stammered. But then he caught himself. He remembered I was a waste now. My cultivation was gone. I had been stripped of my title. He straightened his back, his fear turning into a mocking smirk. I ignored him. I walked straight to Xiao Yao and knelt down to help her up. Xiao Yao, I said softly, you've suffered because of me. Hearing my voice, she broke down. She had been so brave, enduring all the insults and the poverty of the last few weeks without a word. But that one sentence of kindness shattered her walls. She wept into my shoulder. I wiped the blood from her face, then turned my gaze to the steward. Qin Hongfu laughed. He assumed I was just going to swallow my pride and crawl away. If I still had my power, I would have killed him already. Since I was doing nothing, he figured I was helpless. Qin Futian, he sneered, pointing at Xiao Yao. I've taken a liking to this maid of yours. She's got spirit. Tell you what, why don't you just give her to me for a few days? Let me have some fun with her. What do you say? What do I say? I repeated. My voice was like a whisper from the grave. I moved. I was so fast I left an afterimage in the air. Before the steward could even blink, I was in his space. My fist lashed out, aiming straight for his chest. Crunch. Flesh and bone exploded. My fist tore through his ribs and came out the other side. A hole the size of a grapefruit appeared in his chest. The steward's eyes bulged. He tried to speak, but only a torrent of dark blood poured from his mouth. He collapsed backward, hitting the ground with a heavy thud. The silence that followed was deafening. The crowd stood frozen, their hearts racing in terror. I had killed the head steward. One punch. One kill. Wasn't I supposed to be a waste? The crowd was paralyzed. They couldn't wrap their heads around what they had just seen. My dantian was supposed to be shattered. I was supposed to be a waste. Yet, I had just displayed a level of raw, violent power that defied logic. Even more terrifying than my strength was my coldness. I wasn't the same person I used to be. I was colder, harder, and utterly indifferent to the life I had just taken. Let's go back, I said. I turned my back on the corpse and picked up Xiao Yao. I didn't spare Qin Hongfu a second glance. To me, killing him wasn't a grand statement. It was a chore I had finally finished. Back at our small, dilapidated quarters, I laid Xiao Yao gently on the bed. I needed to check her injuries. Young master, I'm fine, she whispered, trying to sit up. She looked uncomfortable with me fussing over her. Let me do it myself. Don't move, I barked. My voice was sharp, leaving no room for argument. I carefully examined the bruises and cuts on her small frame. Young master, thank you, she said softly. She stayed still this time, a flicker of warmth shining in her eyes. To her, she was just a lowly maid. She couldn't understand why I would risk everything for her. Silly girl, I said, shaking my head. I'm the one who should be thanking you. These past few weeks, the Qin family treated me like trash. They wanted me dead. You were the only one who stayed. But that's just what I'm supposed to do, she stammered. There is no supposed to, I said firmly. You could have left me to rot, but you didn't. From now on, as long as you are with me, I will kill anyone who dares to touch you. The words hit her like a physical weight. I could see her breath hitch. In a world this cruel, there was no promise more beautiful than that. Meanwhile, in the main courtyard of the estate, the clan head, Qin Tianxiong, sat frozen. He slowly set down his golden teacup and looked at the man standing before him, Qin Tianxiong. What did you say? Qin Futian killed the head steward. It's true. Qin Tianxiong nodded, his face twisted in a sneer. That bastard killed him with a single punch. It seems that even though his dantian is broken, he hasn't lost all of his cultivation yet. Qin Tianxiong narrowed his eyes, thinking. Patriarch, it doesn't matter. Qin Tianxiong pushed, sensing an opportunity. He's a cripple now. If we let him murder our staff in broad daylight without punishment, the family will lose all respect. We have to teach him a lesson. You're right, Qin Tianxiong said with a cold laugh. In the past, he was useful to the clan, so I tolerated his arrogance. Now, he's a waste who doesn't know his place. Seventh Elder, see to it. I know exactly what to do, Qin Tianxiong replied. Then, he leaned in closer. On another note, regarding the new young master position, I heard your son, Qin's son, has reached the 9th level of the pulse condensation realm. He's even mastered the 5th strike of the butterfly wave sword. Qin Tianxiong looked at him and smiled. Your son's talent is barely below what Futian's used to be. He's a good seed. I think the position of young master belongs to Qin's son. Qin Tianxiong bowed, hiding his grin. He had always hated me because I overshadowed his son. Now that I was broken, it was time for Qin's son to shine. And what better way to secure his son's future than by using this lesson to eliminate me entirely? He hurried back to his own quarters and summoned his son. Son, I assume you've heard about Qin Futian killing the steward? I have, father, Qin's son replied, his voice full of arrogance. Good. I want you to go and kill him. Make sure everyone in Yunsong City knows about it. Qin Sen's eyes lit up. He knew exactly what his father was doing. He was being handed my head on a silver platter to prove his dominance. Don't worry, father, Qin Sen laughed. I'll go crush that dog right now. A short while later, a loud crash echoed through my courtyard. My front door was kicked off its hinges, sending wood splinters flying into the air. Qin Sen stormed in, flanked by 2 thugs, Qin Long and Qin Hu. Qin Futian, you waste. Get out here and die, Qin Sen screamed. Silence. He waited, but no one came out. He signaled his men to search the house. They tore the place apart, flipping tables and throwing blankets, but the rooms were empty. Brother, the waste isn't here, Qin Long reported. The maid is gone too. Qin Sen frowned. The coward. He must have realized what he did and fled the estate. Qin Hu spat on the floor in disgust. Let him run, Qin's son sneered. He just bought himself a few more days of life. He won't get far. At that moment, I was miles away from the city. I walked down a narrow mountain path, my white robes fluttering in the breeze. Behind me, Xiao Yao was struggling to keep up. She was thin and exhausted, but she gritted her teeth and refused to ask for a break. After an hour, I finally stopped. Xiao Yao, are you tired? Yes, she panted, nodding honestly. I had maintained a pace that was just at the limit of her endurance, hard enough to challenge her, but not so fast that she'd collapse. Good, I said. If you want to walk the path of a warrior, you have to embrace suffering. There are no shortcuts. I understand, she said, her gaze hardening with resolve. I liked her spirit. Her talent was bottom of the barrel, but that didn't matter to me. To the world, talent is everything. To me, the man who once stood at the pinnacle of the god realm, talent is something I can fix. Character, however, cannot be taught. Young master, she asked hopefully, has your power returned? A little, I replied. It was a massive understatement. Compared to my former glory, Being at the third level of the pulse condensation realm was like being an ant. But I had to start somewhere. I needed resources, and staying at the Qin estate was a dead end. My plan was simple. Head into the Black Wind Mountains to train and find herbs. Next month, the Heaven Sword sect would be recruiting in Yunsong City. Joining a sect was the fastest way to get the high-level resources I needed to rebuild my foundation. That's amazing. Xiao Yao nearly jumped with joy. Her exhaustion seemed to vanish instantly. I knew you'd get better. She was so pure. She was happier about my recovery than her own safety. We pushed deeper into the mountains. I wasn't just here for myself. I needed specific medicinal plants to help Xiao Yao begin her own cultivation. Eventually, we reached a dense thicket. I signaled for her to stay low. A few yards ahead, a fire-haired pig was napping on a flat stone. It was the size of a small bull, covered in coarse red bristles, its muscles rippling even in sleep. Without a word, I lunged. I moved like an arrow released from a bow, closing the gap before the beast could even open its eyes. The beast sensed the danger far too late. It snapped its eyes open just as my fist descended toward its skull. It tried to scramble away, but I was faster. A heavy thud echoed through the clearing as my knuckles connected solidly with its head. The pig let out a piercing, agonized shriek. I didn't give it a chance to recover. I followed up with a barrage of punches, each one heavy, precise, and devastating. The dull cracks of bone breaking filled the air. Suddenly, the screaming stopped. The massive creature slumped over, its life extinguished in seconds. "Young master, you're incredible," Xiao Yao whispered. She stepped out from behind the bushes, her small face a mix of shock and pure admiration. Even in death, the fire-haired pig looked intimidating, but I had taken it down with nothing but my bare hands. I wiped the sweat from my brow and smiled. It's not much. These things look scary, but they're the lowest tier of spirit beasts, just a weak rank 1. "What's a rank 1?" she asked, tilting her head curiously. "Spirit beasts are like us cultivators," I explained. "They're ranked from low to high. A rank 1 beast is roughly equal to a human in the pulse condensation realm. So a rank 2 would be like a great master in the Qi realm," she guessed. "And a rank 3 would be like a martial sect expert in the true Yuan realm." I nodded. I had explained the different cultivation levels to her before we entered the mountains. "Exactly. But humans have higher intelligence and weapons, so we can usually kill beasts a level higher than ourselves." I pulled out a sharp dagger and got to work. I carved into the pig's chest and pulled out a glowing red sphere. It was the beast's core, also known as an inner Dan. I wanted to see if my creation divine cauldron could process this directly. I activated the creation heaven-devouring technique. The core in my palm began to dissolve at a visible rate. In less than a minute, it broke down into countless red sparks and vanished. I felt a surge of rich, raw energy flood my body, all of it getting sucked into the cauldron. A moment later, a fresh drop of creation water appeared inside. My heart leaped. It worked. Not only did it work, but refining a core was much faster and more efficient than just absorbing thin air. This meant the cauldron could refine anything with spiritual energy, beasts, herbs, or treasures. "Let's go find some spirit herbs," I said. I wanted to test my theory one more time. "Wait, we're just leaving the pig." Xiao Yao looked at the carcass, her heart clearly aching at the waist. A beast this size would sell for so much silver in the city. Even in the Qin estate, we rarely got to eat meat like this. I laughed and shook my head. "Forget it. This meat tastes sour and tough. Later, I'll kill something that actually tastes good for us." Meanwhile, back at the Qin estate in Yunsong City, the news of my departure reached the ears of the clan head, Qin Tianxiu. He frowned, his eyes narrowing. "He's gone?" he asked. "Yes, Patriarch," Qin's son replied, stepping forward. "I went to his quarters today and found it empty. The maid is gone too. Witnesses say they saw him heading toward the Black Wind Mountains." Qin Tianxiu's frown deepened. A cripple who killed a steward with one punch, now heading into the mountains. Is it possible his dantian wasn't actually destroyed? "Impossible," Qin Tianxiu interjected, shaking his head dismissively. "We all felt his shattered dantian ourselves. He's likely just using the last of his fading strength for one final, desperate gamble. He thinks he can find a miracle herb in those mountains to fix himself, but those only grow in the deepest, deadliest parts. He's walking to his death. Qin Tianxiong nodded, but the unease didn't leave his face. Even so, that boy gives me a bad feeling. I don't like loose ends. Qin Tianxiong let out a cold laugh and made a throat-slitting gesture. You want him handled? Qin's son immediately stepped up. Patriarch, let me do it. I'll make sure he never comes back. No, Sinner, Qin Tianxiong countered. The Heaven Sword sect is coming to recruit soon. You stay here and focus on your training. You are the young master of this clan now. Your success is our priority. Then who will kill him? Qin Sin asked. I'll do it myself, Qin Tianxiong said with a chilling smile. I'm heading into the mountains anyway to find some herbs for your breakthrough. Killing a waste like Qin Futian will just be a minor detour. 6 days passed. Deep within the Black Wind Mountains, specifically at Falling Phoenix Peak, I paused to look around. A wave of bitter memory hit me. This was the exact spot where I had fought for the Qin family's interests, where my Dantian had been shattered, and where the original Qin Futian had died. He had given everything for that family. And in return, his fiancée had abandoned him, and his kin had treated him like trash. I carried the soul of a god emperor now, but I could still feel the echoes of his pain. It was pathetic and tragic. But I promised him one thing. Every insult and every betrayal would soon be paid back in blood. Over those 6 days, Xiao Yao and I were busy. We hunted 3 more spirit beasts and gathered 13 different herbs. I found a natural stone cave and decided it was time to break through. Guard the entrance, I told Xiao Yao. I sat cross-legged and began the refinement. The herbs dissolved in my palms one by one. In less than 15 minutes, all 13 plants were gone. Inside my cauldron, 11 new drops of creation water shimmered. My path back to the top was finally beginning. Some of the herbs I gathered were low-grade. Strictly speaking, they weren't even true spirit herbs. I calculated the conversion in my head. 1 first-order spirit herb was roughly equal to the core of a first-order spirit beast. Each would refine into exactly 1 drop of creation water. I didn't waste any time. I began refining the beast cores I had collected. The 3 cores dissolved quickly, adding 3 more drops to the cauldron. Including the drop from the fire-haired boar I killed earlier, I now had 15 drops of creation water shimmering in my sea of consciousness. It was enough. With a single thought, I began to draw the energy out. The translucent drops floated from the cauldron and merged into my flesh. I felt my body undergo a rapid, violent transformation. My aura surged. In less than an hour, the 4th meridian in my body snapped open. I had reached the 4th level of the pulse opening realm. I checked the cauldron again. 11 drops remained. Moving from the 3rd to the 4th level had cost me 4 drops. I started doing the math. To get from the 1st to the 2nd level, I only needed 1 drop. From the 2nd to the 3rd, it took 2. Now, it had taken 4. It seemed the cost doubled with every level I climbed. To test my theory, I pushed harder. I spent another hour submerged in meditation. My breathing shifted, becoming heavy and rhythmic. Suddenly, a 5th meridian tore open. 5th level of the pulse opening realm. I exhaled a long breath and opened my eyes. I looked inside the cauldron. Only 3 drops were left. My guess was right. Breaking through to the 5th level had consumed 8 drops. The speed was terrifying. As long as I had enough resources, my body could evolve indefinitely. This was miles ahead of any normal cultivation method. I stood up and began to move. I started practicing a technique from my past life called Xingyi Quan, specifically the 5 elements fist. It was a style I had mastered long ago, perfect for the pulse opening realm because it boosted both combat power and internal cultivation. I threw a punch. Boom. A faint red glow flickered on my knuckles. The air itself seemed to explode with a dull roar. That was the cannon fist, the fire element strike of the set. The 5 elements fist combined metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The cannon fist was pure fire, aggressive, explosive, and capable of devastating destruction in a single heartbeat. I unleashed a barrage of strikes, ending with a heavy blow against a massive boulder in the cave. Crack. The stone shattered into fragments with a deafening bang. I stared at my hands. The creation water had tempered my body into something monstrous. My spiritual energy was incredibly pure. Even in my past life as a god emperor, my strength at this level couldn't compare to what I felt now. I was only at the 5th level, yet I could already project my energy outward, a feat usually reserved for the Great Master realm. A normal 6th or 7th level warrior wouldn't stand a chance against a single punch. I was already approaching the peak strength of my original body before it was broken. Back then, I was at the 9th level. Now, at only the 5th, the gap in raw power was almost gone. If I factored in my combat experience and secret techniques, I was already stronger than I had ever been. I took a deep breath to steady my racing pulse. I only had 3 drops left. To keep growing, I needed better materials. First-order herbs and cores weren't enough anymore. I needed second-order resources. A single second-order core contained 10 times the energy of a first-order one. It would yield at least 10 drops of creation water at once. I walked out of the stone cave. Xiaoyao was nearby, standing by a small stream. She had already cleaned some spirit deer meat and was roasting it over a campfire. The meat was turning a beautiful golden brown, and the savory aroma filled the air. Having Xiaoyao with me was a blessing. She was incredibly skilled. Over the last few days, she had kept me fed with roasted deer, spirit chicken, and steamed silver needle fish. "Young master, you're out," she said, her face lighting up. "Are you hungry? The roast deer is almost ready." She was busy tending the fire. The flames cast a warm glow on her face, making her cheeks look as red and ripe as fresh apples. Her eyes sparkled like water. It was hard not to feel a sense of protective warmth looking at her. I sat down on a nearby flat stone. When the meat was done, I took it and sliced it up. I pulled out some seasonings I had gathered in the mountains, ground rock salt and various wild herbs, and sprinkled them over the meat. We began to eat, enjoying the quiet moment. But the silence didn't last. A group of men emerged from the trees. They wore tattered leather armor and carried bows and swords. They were filthy and disheveled, clearly a hunting party that had been in the mountains for weeks. They spotted us immediately. When their eyes landed on Xiaoyao, their expressions changed. Their eyes turned predatory. "Where did this little beauty come from?" one of them sneered. "She's stunning. Brothers, let's go have a look." These hunters spent months in the wilderness without seeing a woman. Finding a girl as beautiful as Xiaoyao in the middle of nowhere brought out their worst instincts. They surrounded us in seconds. The leader was a hulking man with a jagged scar running down his right cheek. I had been sitting with my back to them, but as I turned my head, his eyes went wide. "You?" he barked, his voice full of shock. "Qin Futian." The leader's face twitched. That jagged scar on his cheek wriggled like a giant, angry centipede. Behind him, the rest of the hunting party froze. The moment they heard my name, their predatory grins vanished, replaced by looks of pure shock. I narrowed my eyes and scanned the group. My gaze finally settled on the hulking man in charge. "Su Meng," I said, the name clicking in my mind. "It's you." I remembered him well. Su Meng was a half-hunter, half-bandit thug. 3 years ago, while I was escorting a shipment of goods for the Qin family to Leifa City, his gang tried to ambush us. I had cut down half his crew single-handedly that day. I was the one who gave him that scar before he barely managed to scramble away with his life. Well, Qin Futian," Su Meng said, a slow, twisted smile spreading across his face. "I never thought I'd run into you here." He rubbed the scar on his cheek. "If the rumors are true, your dantian is shattered. You're nothing but a useless waste now, aren't you?" He stepped closer, his confidence returning. "You gave me this scar 3 years ago. Your power kept growing after that, and I thought I'd never get my revenge. But then I heard the news. Heaven really does have a sense of humor. Today, I'm going to carve a flower into your face to match mine." He glanced over at Xiaoyao, his eyes turning filthy. "And this little girl, she's with you, right? I'm going to make you watch while my brothers and I break her. We'll show her a real good time before we let her die." Xiaoyao trembled. She took a small, shaky step toward me and whispered, "Young master." I reached out and patted her shoulder gently. "Don't be afraid." I took the piece of roasted meat from my hand and placed it in hers. "Hold this for a second. I'll finish eating after I deal with them." I stood up slowly. My voice was calm, but cold. "You frightened Xiaoyao." Su Meng blinked. He expected me to beg or try to run. Seeing me stand my ground with such indifference made him hesitate. Something felt wrong. "Kill him. All of you, get him," Su Meng roared. Two men lunged at me from the left and right, their heavy cleavers whistling through the air. I didn't panic. I stepped forward, slipping between the blades with an inch to spare. My fists shot out like twin cannonballs, a perfect execution of the crushing punch. The first man didn't even have time to scream. My fist punched a literal hole through his chest, exiting out his back. He collapsed, dead before he hit the dirt. The second man took the blow to his shoulder. The impact pulverized the bone, and spray of blood misted the air as he was sent flying, his body twitching in the grass. 3 more were on me instantly. One thrust a sword at my face, another swung a blade at my waist, and the third lunged with a long iron spear aimed straight for my heart. They were experienced killers, moving with a grim, practiced synergy. A normal warrior at the 6th stage of the pulse opening realm would have been cut to pieces. But I wasn't a normal warrior. I stepped into the reach of the spear. Just as the tip was about to pierce my skin, I grabbed the shaft and snapped the iron head off with a sharp twist. I arched my back low, the sword and blade grazing past me as I spun in the air like a whirlwind. I drove the broken spearhead into the throat of the woman with the sword. Blood sprayed. Without stopping, I spun again and drove the jagged metal into the chest of the man with the waist blade. The last man, still holding the headless spear shaft, froze in terror. Wait, I didn't let him finish. I flicked the spearhead from my hand. It whistled through the air and buried itself deep in his open mouth, the tip bursting through the back of his skull. In less than 10 breaths, 5 men were dead. Only Su Mang and an old man with a hooked nose remained. Su Mang's face was ghostly white. He couldn't wrap his head around it. 3 years ago, I was at the 6th stage. Now, I was only at the 5th, yet I was 10 times more terrifying. I had killed 5 people without a single wasted movement or a flicker of emotion in my eyes. I was wrong, Su Mang stammered, his knees shaking. Young Master Qin, please. Let me go. I didn't answer. I just kept walking toward him. Su Mang looked at me and saw death. He couldn't take the pressure anymore. He turned to bolt, but I was already there. I threw a heavy punch directly at his head. Crack, his skull shattered like a dropped melon. The old man with the hooked nose was the only one left. He was shaking so hard, he couldn't even stand. A foul smell filled the air as a yellow puddle formed at his feet. He tried to sink to his knees to beg, but my fist reached him before his knees hit the ground. It was over. 7 men, wiped out in 20 seconds. Ants, I muttered, looking at the bodies. I went through their belongings, stripping the spirit rings from their fingers. They had been busy. I found 32 spirit herbs, 10 beast cores, and a decent stack of silver notes. I did the math. This haul would give me about 40 drops of creation water. Combined with what I already had, I was closing in on the 8th stage of the pulse opening realm. To hit the 6th stage, I only needed 16 more drops. I looked back at Xiaoyao. She was still holding the meat, her eyes wide. I walked back, sat down on my stone, and took the deer meat back. Let's eat, I said. It's getting cold. To jump from the 6th to the 7th stage of the pulse opening realm, I needed 32 drops of creation water. In total, that meant I needed 48. I was still 5 drops short. I decided not to refine what I had just yet. My cultivation had jumped from the 3rd stage to the 5th too quickly, and my body hadn't fully adapted. I needed to practice my basic martial arts techniques first to stabilize my foundation. I turned my head and saw Xiaoyao. She was crouching on the ground, arms wrapped around herself, her face deathly pale. Her eyes were wide with lingering terror. I shook my head slightly. I hadn't thought much of the slaughter. As a former god emperor, I had ended countless lives. Killing a few ants didn't stir a single ripple in my heart. But Xiaoyao was different. She hadn't seen much of the world's cruelty. Killing the steward back at the estate was one thing, but this bloodbath was on a different level of primal violence. Xiaoyao, I said. She looked up at me, trembling. If you want to walk the path of martial arts, you have to face killing, I told her firmly. I understand, she whispered. Remember this, I continued. Slaughter is inevitable. It is a constant in this world. If I hadn't killed them today, they would have killed me. It's that simple. I know, she said, her voice small but growing clearer. They were bad people. They deserved to die. No, I shook my head. It has nothing to do with whether they were good or bad. Even if they were saints, What does it matter? There is no absolute good or evil in this world. Think of the mantis stalking the cicada, only for the oriole to strike from behind. Which one is good? Which one is evil? In the vast universe, it is natural selection. Only the strong can fight against heaven for a chance to live. The weak are simply erased like dust. I looked her in the eye. If you want to achieve greatness, you have to fight for your life against heaven and against others. If you don't kill, you will be killed. My words seemed to strike a chord. Her eyes, once clouded with fear, slowly became resolute. She repeated my words under her breath, internalizing the cold logic of the world I lived in. Young master, I understand, she said, her voice finally steady. Good. Take this. I pulled one of the spirit rings I'd looted, the one belonging to the woman with the sword, and handed it to her. Prick your finger and claim it with your blood. She took the ring and slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I then handed her a stalk of dark blue grass I'd found. Eat this now. She didn't hesitate. She swallowed the herb immediately. Now, start your cultivation. Under my guidance, Xiaoyao began to meditate. I had searched through my memories of the God realm to find the perfect technique for her. I chose the True Spirit Profound Water Manual. It was a supreme secret method that suited her constitution perfectly. As she sat cross-legged, I placed my hand on the crown of her head. I began the empowerment rite. I channeled the surrounding spiritual energy, forming a vortex, and guided a pure thread of that power directly into her body. She felt the energy enter and immediately began circulating it toward her dantian. Most people in this world would never dream of such a thing. Even the greatest martial saints might not know the secrets of the empowerment rite. It was a divine shortcut, turning the impossible into the routine. I sat beside her as she practiced. Without realizing it, I entered a strange, meditative state myself. My breathing slowed, falling into a specific, rhythmic pattern that synchronized with the world around me. It was the turtle breath technique. Paired with my heaven-devouring creation art, the two techniques complemented each other perfectly. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Xiaoyao finally stopped. She exhaled a long breath of turbid air and opened her eyes. They were brighter and clearer than they had been 3 days ago. I opened my eyes too and looked at her. She was transformed. Stepping into the path of martial arts is the most important metamorphosis a living being can undergo. Without spiritual energy, you are just flesh and bone. With it, you possess a spark of divinity. The exhaustion and haggard look from her years of hard labor were gone. Her skin glowed, and her spirit was full. With her features refined by the True Spirit Profound Water Manual, she was now so beautiful she could rival Jiang Yunlan, the so-called first goddess of our city. How do you feel? I asked. I feel amazing, young master, she cried out, clenching her small fists. I feel like I have endless strength. Thank you. She was beaming. In this world, only 1 in a million commoners ever got the chance to become a practitioner. Born into poverty and sold as a maid, she had never dared to dream of this. Now, she was a true martial student in the pulse-opening realm. It felt like a dream to her, and I could see the devotion in her eyes. She belonged to me now, heart and soul. Young master, you've recovered your strength and you're so powerful now, she said with a look of pure worship. The Qin family will regret everything when they find out. And Jiang Yunlan, breaking her engagement with you was her biggest mistake. No woman in this world is worthy of you. I just smiled and said nothing. Men like Qin Tianxiong were short-sighted and heartless. They would pay their debt in due time. To me, they were just insects. Young master, the Heaven Sword sect is recruiting new disciples soon, Xiaoyao reminded me. Are we going back to Yinsong City? Not yet, I replied. We still have a few days. I need to find more medicinal herbs. And if I can find the core of a second-grade spirit beast, that would be even better. I still needed more resources to reach the 7th stage. Plus, I wanted to find the ingredients for a jade spirit pill for Xiaoyao. It wasn't a high-level pill in the God realm, but here, it was unheard of. It could temper spiritual power and improve a person's natural talent. Refining it would be difficult, even with common ingredients. The process was incredibly complex, requiring absolute precision. But for her, it would be worth the effort. I planned to refine the Jade Spirit pill myself once I gathered all the necessary ingredients. However, getting my hands on a second-grade Spirit Beast core meant I had to venture much deeper into the Black Wind Mountains. While I was moving deeper, a figure appeared at the edge of the mountains near Yinsong City. It was Qin Tiansheng, the seventh elder of the Qin family. He looked furious, his eyes scanning the dense tree line. He had been tracking my movements and confirmed that I had entered the mountains with Xiao Yao days ago. He had spent that time searching the outer perimeter, but he found absolutely nothing. Did that little animal actually go deeper? Qin Tiansheng muttered, staring toward the heart of the mountain range where the ancient trees grew thick and the roars of powerful beasts echoed through the air. He frowned. He didn't want to go in there. Encountering a second-grade spirit beast meant risking his life, and he didn't think a waste with a shattered dantian was worth the danger. I'll just wait here at the entrance, he decided, finding a massive tree and leaping onto a high branch. If that brat manages to come out alive, I'll slaughter him myself. Deep in the forest, Xiao Yao was watching me work with a look of confusion and slight disgust. I was busy slicing up the heart of a fire bristle boar on a flat stone, chopping it into a bloody pulp. Then, I took a dozen bright red fruits and mashed them into the meat. "Young master, what are you doing?" she asked, wrinkling her nose. "These are cat ear fruits, Xiao Yao," I explained, mixing the paste. "They add a scent that is irresistible to a second-grade black wolf. I'm making bait." Xiao Yao looked worried. "A black wolf? That's a second-grade beast. That's the equivalent of a human Qi Si realm master." I knew why she was scared. In Yinsong City, a Qi Si practitioner was a top-tier expert. In the entire Qin family, the strongest members were in the Qi Si realm. The seventh elder, Qin Tiansheng, had only just entered it. The clan leader, Qin Tianxiong, was only at the third stage. Even the city lord, Jiang Yuanhai, was only at the peak of the Qi Si realm. "Don't worry," I said with a confident smile. "I never do anything I'm not prepared for." I pulled out a few small, green fruits and sliced them open with my blade. A thick, milky white juice oozed out. These were rice pulp fruits, usually used for brewing potent wine. I squeezed the juice over the meat mash. The aroma was incredible. Xiao Yao sniffed the air, looking dazed. "Wow, it smells so sweet." "Don't smell too much, or you'll get drunk," I teased. "And if a wolf carries you off then, I won't be able to help you." She stuck her tongue out and quickly held her breath. I explained that while the juice smelled like sweet rice, it was actually a powerful sedative that could cloud the mind of even a fierce beast. I rolled the mixture into several round meatballs and placed them in a clearing. Then, I pulled Xiao Yao up into a nearby tree to wait. 15 minutes passed. Suddenly, the bushes rustled. I tensed up, staring at the source of the sound. Two glowing blue eyes emerged from the shadows. The bait was working. The black wolf was cautious. It stayed in the brush for another quarter of an hour, its nose twitching as it sampled the air. Finally, it stepped out. It was jet black, looking like it had been dipped in ink, and it radiated a violent, predatory aura. It circled the meatballs, growling low as saliva dripped from its jaws. Xiao Yao gripped her hem, her knuckles white. We waited for it to bite, but the wolf suddenly turned around and vanished back into the woods. "Did we fail?" Xiao Yao whispered, her face falling. I signaled for her to be quiet. We waited another half hour. Finally, the wolf returned. This time, it didn't hesitate. It snapped up a meatball and chewed with obvious delight. It finished every single one and let out a satisfied grunt, swaying slightly as it turned to leave. That was my signal. I dropped from the tree like a stone, my sword aimed straight for the wolf's spine. The beast was fast. Even drugged, its instincts were sharp. It lunged forward just as I landed, causing my blade to strike empty air. I hit the ground and rolled. It was quick, definitely one of the faster ones in its pack. The black wolf turned to face me. It sniffed the air, sensing my cultivation level. These low-level beasts don't understand human ranks, but they can sense power levels through instinct. To this wolf, I smelled weak. It looked at me with what almost seemed like a sneer of contempt. In the next heartbeat, it kicked off the ground like a black whirlwind, claws extended. I threw myself to the side, narrowly dodging its reach. It lunged again and again, its movements a blur of fur and teeth, but I stayed focused, waiting for the toxin in its blood to do its work. On the wolf's fifth charge, I stopped running. The beast lunged, its massive body flying through the air toward me. From her perch in the tree, Xiao Yao let out a scream and squeezed her eyes shut. She thought it was over. But in that split second, I dropped flat onto my back. As the wolf soared over me, I thrust my sword upward with everything I had. The blade sank deep into its throat. I didn't stop there. I pulled the sword along its underside, carving a foot-long gash from its neck down to its belly. Blood sprayed across my face. A second later, the wolf hit the ground, and its internal organs spilled out onto the grass. The creature didn't die immediately. It struggled to its feet, legs shaking violently, letting out a mixture of low growls and pained whimpers. It bared its teeth at me, a final, desperate warning. I wasn't in a rush. I circled the beast, watching it carefully. This was a rank 2 spirit beast. Even a dying one could kill me if I got careless. After a dozen circles, the wolf's legs finally gave out. It collapsed, its eyes growing glassy and distant. It started making strange, high-pitched noises. I knew the toxin from the berries had finally taken full control of its brain. I stepped forward and drove my sword through its skull. One strike. Silence. Xiao Yao slid down from the tree, gasping for air as if she had been the one fighting. "Young master, that was too close," she said, her voice trembling. I gave her a small smile. It looked dangerous, but I had been in total control. Even without the drugged meat, I could have killed it. It just would have cost me more energy. I knelt by the carcass and cut out the beast core. It was dense and glowing with power. A rank 2 core held significantly more spiritual energy than anything I'd found so far. I could feel it. This single core could produce far more than 10 drops of creation water. It was time to break through again. I needed to reach the 7th layer of the pulse opening realm. We retreated to a hidden stone cave. My previous session had taken me from the 3rd to the 5th layer. After a few days of letting that power settle and using my breathing techniques to harden my foundation, I was ready to push further. I sat cross-legged and activated the creation heaven-devouring technique. Deep in my dantian, the creation divine furnace began to glow with a heavenly light. One by one, I tossed in the spirit herbs and the beast cores I had gathered. Refining the rank 2 core took much longer than the others, nearly 2 hours of intense focus. But the payoff was worth it. That single wolf core yielded 13 drops of creation water. Combined with the other herbs and cores, I gained 42 more drops. Added to what I already had, I now possessed 58 drops of pure, golden liquid. This should be enough, I whispered to myself. I released the water. It flooded my meridians, soaking into my limbs and bones. My spiritual energy began to transform, becoming thicker and more refined. I directed the flow toward my 6th meridian. The process was brutal. My body had reached the 9th layer in the past, but the injuries I'd suffered at Luofeng Mountain had been catastrophic. Without energy to keep them open, my meridians had clogged with impurities and dead knots. Recultivating was actually harder the second time around, but the creation water was relentless. Where a meridian was blocked, the water simply destroyed it and forced it to regrow. The new pathways were wider, stronger, and more resilient. It felt like my bones were being crushed and my flesh was being rewoven. It was a literal baptism by fire. 2 days passed in that cave. When I finally opened my eyes, I had jumped from the 5th layer straight to the 7th layer of the pulse opening realm. I exhaled a long breath, feeling the tension leave my body. I could feel the blood rushing through me like a crashing tide. Every inch of my muscle and bone felt packed with explosive power. I was only at the 7th layer, but I knew I was stronger now than I had ever been at the 9th. Even a warrior at the sea transformation realm wouldn't be able to handle a single punch from me. I walked to the mouth of the cave and faced the stone cliff. I threw a punch. Boom. A flash of fire erupted from my knuckles. The sound echoed through the woods as my fist sank deep into the rock. Cracks spiderwebbed out from the impact point for several feet. The power was more concentrated, the flames more vivid. The creation divine furnace was even more incredible than I had imagined. Without it, even with my memories as a god emperor, I never could have progressed this fast. "Young master," Xiao Yao ran over, looking at the hole in the cliff with wide eyes. I noticed her aura was steadier too. She hadn't been lazy while I was training. Did you break through again? I nodded. A small improvement. Are we going back to Yunsong City now? She asked eagerly. The Heavenly Sword Sect starts recruiting in 2 days. I want to see you wipe those smug looks off the faces of the Qin family. I still need golden bamboo shoots and purple spirit vines, I said. If I can't find them soon, we'll head back. I left her at the cave and spent the next half-day sprinting through the deep forest. I managed to find the golden bamboo shoots, but the purple spirit vines, the key ingredient for the jade spirit pill, were nowhere to be found. Since they weren't here, I had no choice but to start the journey home. I had no choice but to return to Yunsong City to buy what I needed. The Spirit Elixir Pavilion, there should have purple spirit vines for sale. With that plan in mind, I headed back to the stone cave, gathered Xiao Yao, and we began our journey home. Meanwhile, near the exit of the Black Wind Mountains, Qin Tianqing had been waiting for 3 days. He was perched in a tree, growing impatient. He muttered to himself, wondering why a bastard like me hadn't appeared yet. He knew I had entered the mountains with my maid. He figured I was likely dead already. After all, a man with a shattered dantian wouldn't last long in the wilderness, even if he was desperate to find a miracle cure. Tomorrow is the day the Heavenly Sword Sect recruits new disciples, Qin Tianqing grumbled. I need to see my son, Qin's son, pass the exam. I can't stay here forever. Just as he prepared to leave, his eyes lit up. In the distance, a young man in white was walking toward the exit. A young girl followed closely behind him. It was me. Qin Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. His killing intent flared. He felt lucky he hadn't left a moment sooner. As we walked, I suddenly stopped. Young master, what is it? Xiao Yao asked, pausing beside me. I reached out and took her hand. Her face flushed with a hint of shyness, but when she saw the sharp, cautious look in my eyes, she understood immediately. Ever since she started practicing the True Spirit Mysterious Water Manual, her senses had sharpened. She didn't say a word, letting me lead her forward as if nothing was wrong. Up in the tree, Qin Tianqing watched us with pure disdain. He thought it was pathetic that I was flirting with a lowly maid in my final moments. As we passed directly under his branch, he moved. He dropped from the tree like a massive bird of prey, his palm cutting through the air with a whistling howl, aiming straight for the top of my head. Watch out, I barked. Xiao Yao lunged to the side. I stepped back twice, narrowly avoiding the strike. My eyes locked onto the attacker. Qin Tianqing, I said coldly. Did Qin Tianqing send you? Xiao Yao's face went pale with worry. To her, a clan elder like Qin Tianqing was an unstoppable force. She rushed forward, placing herself between us. Young master, run. I'll hold him off, she whispered. Then she glared at the elder. 7th elder. My master has given everything to the Qin family. How can you be this cruel? Why won't you let him live? Qin Tianqing laughed. He did a lot for the family, sure. But the family raised him. Everything he did was his duty. But his dantian is shattered. Xiao Yao cried out. He's already paid his debt in blood. Why are you still hunting him? Because the clan head doesn't want him breathing. Qin Tianqing replied with a playful smirk. We pull weeds by the roots. If you had stayed at the estate, my son Qin's son would have killed you in your sleep. Instead, I've had to waste days out here in the dirt. How should I pay you back for that? A quick death, or should I take my time breaking you first? I narrowed my eyes. So, Qin's son wants me dead too? Killing you is as easy as flipping a hand, he sneered. My son wanted to do it himself, but I told him to focus on the sect entrance exams. I decided to handle this trash personally. I started to laugh. What's so funny? Qin Tianqing snapped. I ignored him and looked at Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao, step aside and wait for me. I was moved. Even as a god emperor in my past life, I couldn't remember anyone who would willingly stand in front of a killer to protect me. But Xiao Yao didn't hesitate. She was terrified, yet she didn't want to move. I didn't give her a choice. I stepped past her, shielding her with my own body, and launched a crushing punch straight at Qin Tianqing. The punch was built on explosive, internal power. It hit like a lightning bolt. Qin Tianqing's pupils shrank. You little beast. You dare strike first. He countered with the hunting cup palm, a high-level Qin family technique. He unleashed the 9th form, sending 9 layers of palm prints crashing toward me like waves. Boom. Our powers collided with a deafening roar. I didn't hold back. I wanted to see exactly how strong I had become. The shockwave shattered the air between us. Qin Tianqing stumbled back 7 steps, his chest heaving as his blood boiled from the impact. His arms were trembling with a sharp, stinging pain. He looked at me, horrified. I hadn't moved an inch. How? He gasped. Your Dantian is ruined. Where did this power come from? I didn't answer. I just smiled. My strength was already superior to a warrior at the beginning of the sea transformation realm. Without a word, I lunged forward again. Boom. Another crushing punch. Qin Tianqing tried to block it with both hands. Crack. The sound of snapping bone echoed through the trees. Both of his arms were shattered. He flew backward a dozen steps, his legs shaking as he struggled to stay upright. Terror finally replaced his arrogance. I took a 3rd step toward him. 3 punches. That was all it took to finish him. My final crushing punch slammed directly into Qin Tianqing's chest. A spray of blood erupted from his mouth. Then, blood began leaking from his eyes, ears, and nose. His chest cavity completely collapsed under the force, his internal organs ground into a bloody pulp. I walked over to him, looking down at his broken body with a cold, mocking smile. You've been waiting here for me for days, haven't you? Qin Tianqing stared up at me, his eyes filled with nothing but helplessness and despair. In that moment, he finally realized the truth. He hadn't been waiting to ambush me. He had been waiting for his own death. With a sickening thud, his upper skeleton gave way. His legs could no longer support him, and he slumped into the dirt like a pile of mud. Blood bubbled from his throat as he struggled to speak. Qin Futian. Qin Futian. He lifted his head with agonizing effort, his eyes pleading. I beg you, please don't kill Sung. He knew he was finished. There was no hope left for him. But in his final moments, he thought of his son, Qin's son. He saw that my cultivation wasn't just restored, it was stronger than it had ever been at my peak. He knew I would go to the Heavenly Sword Sect entrance exams, and he knew I would run into his son there. He remembered my question from moments ago, whether Qin Sung wanted me dead too. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it. He had boasted that if Qin Sung hadn't been busy preparing for the exams, he would have come to the Black Peak Mountains himself to kill me. Now, the weight of those words terrified him. He knew my character. I wouldn't let a threat like that live. I looked at him, my expression indifferent. Beg you? Are we that close? As I spoke, I reached down and slid the spatial ring off his finger. With a flick of my will, I erased his spiritual imprint and peered inside. My eyebrows shot up. So many spirit herbs, and even pills, I remarked. As an elder of the Qin family, you've certainly lined your pockets well. All those years I bled for the clan, 99% of the resources I earned went into the warehouse. And I suppose you elders split most of that among yourselves? You're quite fat with greed. I looked back at his fading eyes. For the sake of these treasures, I'll grant your request. Qin Tianqing's dim eyes flickered with a sudden spark of hope. But my next words turned that hope into pure darkness. I promise you, I whispered, I'll make sure his death is quick. The light vanished from his eyes. His final breath escaped him, and he went still. I felt nothing as I watched him die. Beside me, Xiao Yao was trembling, but not from fear. She was overwhelmed with joy. To her, an elder was a godlike figure, yet I had crushed him like an insect. I began sorting through the loot in the ring. There was golden money grass, red gold bamboo, jade hibiscus, the list went on. There were nearly 60 different spirit herbs. 3 of them were second tier. I also found 3 spirit beast cores, though they were only first tier. Usually, people refine or sell cores quickly because they lose potency when dried out. But the real prizes were the pills. In a backwater place like Yunsong City, pills were incredibly rare. A low-grade chi circulating pill could sell for 100 silver taels. A first-tier Great Spirit pill? That could fetch 1,000. In this world, silver and gold were the common currency for the masses, while spirit stones were so rare I barely remembered seeing them in this city. I popped the corks on the bottles. 3 chi circulating pills, 3 Great Spirit pills, and 1 turtle chi pill. Xiao Yao, these are for you, I said, handing her the bottle of chi circulating pills. They were useless to me since I didn't have a traditional dantian anymore. The Great Spirit pills helped gather spiritual energy, but with my heaven-devouring creation technique, my absorption speed was already high enough. The Turtle Chi pill was more interesting. It helped compress energy to break through from the pulse opening realm to the sea transformation realm. Then, a thought struck me. If my creation cauldron could refine raw herbs and beast cores, could it refine finished pills? I gripped a Great Spirit pill in my palm and activated the technique. The pill dissolved instantly. Inside the cauldron, 3 drops of creation water appeared. I felt a surge of excitement. Normally, it takes about 10 herbs to make a batch of 10 pills. That means 1 pill equals roughly 1 herb. Refining a raw first-tier herb only gave me 1 drop of water, but refining the pill gave me 3. The efficiency was tripled, and this was just a mid-grade pill. If I refined high-grade or perfect quality pills, the yield would be even higher. As a former God Emperor, my alchemy skills were peerless. To me, these pills were poorly made trash, but they were efficient fuel. I decided not to refine the rest just yet. I had just broken through to the 7th level of the pulse opening realm and needed a few days to stabilize. Besides, I suspected the creation water had more uses than just tempering my body. Xiaoyao stood beside me, clutching the pills I gave her. She looked like she was in a dream. Just a few weeks ago, she was desperately trying to save every copper to buy me a single pill. Now, I had handed her 3 without a second thought. She smiled, a sense of peace finally settling over her. We turned back toward Yunsong City. Everything had changed since we left. As we approached the gates, I noticed the city was far more crowded than usual. The Heavenly Sword sect recruitment was starting, and young warriors from a dozen surrounding towns were flooding in. The stage was set, and I was ready to take back everything that was mine. Every young warrior with even a shred of talent was swarming the city. They all wanted a shot at joining the Heavenly Sword sect. Even though the odds were slim, nobody was willing to give up without a fight. I walked down the main road with a steady pace. Xiaoyao followed close behind me. She wasn't the timid girl who had fled the city weeks ago. Her posture was straight, and there was a newfound confidence in her eyes. "Who do you think will take the top spot this time?" A voice called out ahead of us. I looked up and saw a group of people walking in front of us, locked in a heated debate. "I heard the winner gets to become an inner disciple immediately," another added. "There's no suspense at all," a third man chimed in. "It's definitely going to be Jiang Yunlan from the Jiang family. Her talent is undisputed. They say the sect only chose Yunsong City for the recruitment because of her." "I wouldn't be so sure," a skeptic countered. "Lei Chong, Su Tonglong, and you are all strong contenders. I've heard Lei Chong mastered his family's Thunderbow saber technique. If he lets loose, even Jiang Yunlan might struggle to stop him." "The Thunderbow technique is terrifying, sure," a woman in the group sighed. "But if we're talking about people who could actually challenge Jiang Yunlan, there's only one person who could have done it. It's a shame, really." "You mean Qin Futian?" the scholar-looking man next to her asked. He shook his head. "They used to call them the Golden Boy and Jade Girl of Yunsong City. Qin Futian was the boy, and his talent actually surpassed hers. But his dantian is shattered. He's a total waste now. It's a tragedy to see a genius fall like that." I listened to them talk about me as if I were a ghost. It was almost funny. I didn't care, but I felt Xiaoyao stiffen beside me. She pouted, her small face flushing with anger. She hated hearing them use the word waste. To her, I wasn't a failure. I was the greatest genius in the world. She probably wanted to scream at them that Jiang Yunlan was nothing compared to me. I gave her a small pat on the shoulder. In my past life as the God Emperor, millions of people had whispered about me. If I took every insult to heart, I'd never have time to cultivate. We arrived at the Spirit Pill Pavilion. I needed to buy some purple spirit vines. I hadn't found any in the Black Wind Mountains, and the storage rings I'd looted from Su Meng and Qin Tiansheng were empty of them. The moment we stepped inside, I realized how crowded the city truly was. The pavilion was packed. Everyone was scrambling to buy herbs and pills to prepare for the upcoming trials. "Wait for me here by the entrance," I told Xiaoyao. "It's too crowded for both of us to push through." She nodded obediently and stood by the door. I headed toward the counter, but I hadn't gone far when a sharp shout echoed through the hall. "Xiaoyao!" I paused and looked back. A A young man in green robes with a top knot was glaring at her. He looked furious. "Young Master Su?" Xiao Yao asked, blinking in surprise. "Is something wrong?" The man, Su Yang, marched toward her. He looked like he was ready to explode, but as he got closer, he stopped. He blinked, scanning her up and down. A few weeks ago, Xiao Yao had been sallow-skinned and exhausted, looking like a dull servant. But now, her skin was fair, her features were sharp, and she looked like a genuine beauty. I saw the greed flicker in his eyes. "Where the hell did you go?" Su Yang barked, trying to regain his intimidating posture. "We had an agreement. You were supposed to meet me that night to handle the furnace. My master punished me severely because you never showed up." I remembered now. Su Yang was an alchemy apprentice under Master Wu here at the pavilion. Xiao Yao used to take extra shifts tending the fires to earn a few coppers for me. She had missed her shift the night I killed the steward and we fled the city. "I'm so sorry," Xiao Yao said softly. "Something happened, and I couldn't make it." "Sorry," Su Yang sneered, stepping into her personal space. "Does sorry pay for my losses? Do you have any idea how angry my master was? You think a simple apology settles the debt?" He was screaming in her face now, drawing the attention of everyone in the building. The pavilion's supervisor hurried over, trying to de-escalate the situation. "Young Master Su, please, there's no need for this," the supervisor said with a practiced smile. Xiao Yao probably couldn't leave because she had to look after her young master. "You know his situation." "You mean Qin Futian?" Su Yang laughed mockingly. "The whole city knows about him. The former #1 genius is now a crippled waste. Listen, Xiao Yao, that loser has been kicked out of the Qin family. If you stay with him, you'll only suffer." He leaned in closer, his eyes turning predatory. "Why don't you follow me instead? I'll take much better care of you." Xiao Yao's face went cold. She could handle insults directed at her, but she wouldn't stand for anyone mocking me. "Watch your mouth," she snapped. "My young master is not a waste." "Not a waste," Su Yang roared with laughter. "Everyone knows his cultivation is gone. What's so good about him anyway? Is he that good in bed? Trust me, I'm better." "Xiao Yao, apologize to young Master Su right now," the supervisor hissed, scolding her. "He's trying to help you." The surrounding servants shook their heads, pitying the girl for being so stubborn about a fallen master. I didn't wait any longer. I walked over, my footsteps silent on the stone floor. "Young master," Xiao Yao whispered when she saw me. I gave her a small, calm smile. Then, without saying a word, I turned towards Su Yang and swung my hand. Slap! The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. The force of the blow sent Su Yang spinning through the air until he crashed into a display rack. The entire pavilion went silent. People stared at me in shock. Wasn't I supposed to be a cripple? How was I still this explosive? I didn't look at the man on the floor. I just casually shook my hand as if I'd touched something disgusting. "See that, Xiao Yao?" I said quietly. "That's how you handle trash. Sometimes, you just need to throw out the trash," I said, looking directly at Xiao Yao. "When someone has a mouth as foul as his, you don't argue. You hit them. Do you understand?" Xiao Yao nodded obediently, her eyes bright. "I understand, young master." Su Yang scrambled up from the floor, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth. His face was twisted with pure malice. If I were still the top genius of Yunsong City, he would have swallowed this insult. But everyone believed I was a cripple now. Being struck by a waste was a humiliation he couldn't endure. "Get out. Everyone who doesn't work here, get out now," Su Yang roared, his voice trembling with rage. "Close the doors. Today, I'm going to make sure these two die." The supervisor sighed and shook his head. He began ushering the customers out of the Spirit Pill Pavilion, announcing that business was temporarily suspended. Within seconds, a squad of armed guards rushed in, surrounding Xiao Yao and me in a tight circle. Outside, the crowd started whispering. News traveled fast. They realized I was the fallen genius, Qin Futian. Some pitied me, while others mocked my arrogance. They said my cultivation was gone and that I was just living on borrowed time. To them, I was a dead man walking for daring to spill blood inside the Spirit Pill Pavilion. Inside the silent hall, Su Yang glared at me with murderous intent. "Qin Futian, get on your knees. Lick the bottom of my boots clean, and maybe I'll let you live. Who do you think you are?" A piece of trash like you dares to lay a hand on me. Slap. Before he could finish his sentence, another hand cracked across his face. This time, it wasn't me. Don't you dare insult my master. Xiao Yao shouted. You're the trash. Your whole family is trash. I smiled, genuinely impressed. Good. That's my girl. Suyang lost it. Being slapped by me was bad enough, but being hit by a maid was the ultimate insult. You little bitch. I'll kill you. He lunged forward, his hand stiffening into a blade. He was at the 4th stage of the pulse opening realm, and he used a lethal martial technique. If that strike landed, Xiao Yao would be crippled or worse. He had a cruel smirk on his face, already imagining her blood on the floor. But his hand never reached her. I moved faster. My fingers clamped around his wrist like an iron vice. You think you can touch my people? I asked coldly. I twisted my hand. A sickening crack echoed through the room. Su Yang's wrist snapped like a dry twig. He let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed, clutching his broken limb as his body convulsed in pain. I stepped forward and ground my boot into his chest. You kept calling me a waste. Now look at you, squirming under my foot like a dying dog. If I'm a waste, then what does that make you? Su Yang coughed up a mouthful of blood. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure terror. I was wrong. Master Qin, please. Spare me. I'm the waste. I'm the dog. Now you want mercy? I chuckled. Too late. I prepared to crush his chest, but a thunderous voice stopped me. Stop. A middle-aged man in a gray alchemist robe walked through the crowd of guards. They parted immediately, bowing their heads. It was Wu Kaihe, Su Yang's master and a respected alchemist of the pavilion. The Spirit Pill Pavilion was backed by the Heaven Sword sect, the true rulers of this region. Wu Kaihe was also an elder of the Wu family, a clan far more powerful than the Qins. Master, save me, Su Yang cried out, his eyes lighting up with hope. Qin Futian is insane. Kill him. Wu Kaihe looked at his student's mangled arm, his expression turning icy. Release him, he commanded. He spoke as if his word was law, as if I had no choice but to obey. Su Yang found his courage again. Did you hear him? My master told you to let go. Are you deaf, you waste? Do you even know how to spell the word death? I looked down at the idiot beneath my boot and shook my head. I had seen many fools in my life, but none quite this stupid. I shifted my weight and drove my heel down with everything I had. Crunch. Su Yang's ribs shattered inward, his chest collapsing into a bloody hollow. A spray of red erupted from his mouth. His eyes rolled back, and his body went limp. He was dead before he hit the floor. The silence that followed was heavy. The guards stood frozen. No one expected me to actually kill him in front of his master. To them, I had just signed my own death warrant. Wu Kaihe's killing intent exploded. It felt like a physical weight pressing down on the room. You animal, give me your life. He roared and leaped at me like a pouncing tiger. He was at the 2nd stage of the Qi-Si realm, his spiritual energy swirling around his fists with violent force. The wind from his strike stung my face. I didn't dodge. I didn't flinch. I pulled back my fist and met his attack head-on. Everyone thought I was suicidal. A cripple taking a direct hit from a Qi-Si master? It was madness. Boom. The collision shook the floor. To the horror of everyone watching, it wasn't me who flew back. Wu Kaihe was forced back 3 full steps, his boots skidding across the stone. He stared at me, his eyes wide with shock. Hidden beneath his long sleeves, his hands were shaking uncontrollably. Wu Kaihe's chest heaved, his blood surging with suppressed rage. I could see the confusion in his eyes. He couldn't understand how a waste, with a shattered dantian, possessed such monstrous strength. I didn't give him time to think. I lunged forward. Before reaching the Qi-Si realm, there was no need for fancy, high-level techniques. I stuck to the basics, the 5 elements fist. I threw a crushing punch, the most direct and brutal strike in my arsenal. In the future, this simple move could evolve into something world-shaking, but for now, it was exactly what I needed to end this. Wu Kaihe roared, slamming his palms together to meet my fist. Spiritual energy swirled around his hands like a crashing wave. But the moment we collided, his energy shattered. My fist didn't stop. I followed up with 3 more crushing punches in rapid succession. Asterisk boom, 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 asterisk. Each strike was more vicious than the last. Wu Kaiha was forced back, his heels carving grooves into the floor. By the third hit, he couldn't take any more. He flew backward like a tattered sandbag, spraying a mist of blood into the air before slamming into the ground. His body gave a final, violent twitch, and then he went still. Dead. All that talk, and this is all you had. I let out a cold laugh. Pathetic. Even though he was at the second stage of the Chi-Si realm, his foundation was hollow. He had clearly used too many pills to force his breakthroughs. To me, he was nothing more than an ant. The entire Spirit Pill Pavilion went deathly quiet. People looked at me like I was a monster. Killing Su Yang was one thing, but executing a master like Wu Kaiha? I had just torn the sky open. Since the Heavenly Sword sect established this place in Yunsong City, nothing this insane had ever happened. Young Master Qin. You've done it now, the pavilion manager stammered, his face pale as a ghost. He knew his career, and possibly his life, was over. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure erupted from the floor above us. Ignorant brat, how dare you run wild in my pavilion? Kneel and await your sentence. The voice boomed like thunder. An old man with snow-white hair and a majestic aura descended into the room. The guards instantly backed away, unable to even look him in the eye. My heart skipped a beat. A true Yuan realm martial master. In this world, cultivation was split into stages: channel opening, Chi-Si, true Yuan, God Gate, and Dao repository. In a small place like Yunsong City, a Chi-Si master was a big shot. Even the city lord was only at the peak of the Chi-Si realm. But the man standing before me was a level above, a martial grandmaster. Junior Neil, the old man roared. He moved with incredible speed, closing the distance in a heartbeat. He swung a palm toward my head, his true Yuan energy condensing into a massive, glowing hand that threatened to crush me into the floor. I gritted my teeth. My soul was that of a god emperor, but my body was still just at the channel opening stage. If I used a forbidden technique to bridge this gap, the backlash would destroy my physical form. But then, I noticed something. His energy was flickering. It was dense, but lacked stability. It was hollow. A breaking realm pill. I muttered to myself. So, your cultivation is fake. I spotted the flaw in his technique instantly. I didn't retreat. I threw a punch directly into the center of his glowing energy palm. Boom. The shock wave blasted outward, sending nearby guards flying. The air became thick and heavy, making it hard to breathe. I was thrown back several steps, my internal energy churning from the impact. A true Yuan master was no joke, even a flawed one. The old man, however, looked even more shocked than I was. He expected me to be a puddle of gore. Instead, I was standing my ground. How, he hissed. You're just a channel opening brat. How did you survive that? He raised his hand again, preparing a second strike, forcing his energy to circulate. Do you want to die even sooner? I asked calmly. The old man froze. His eyes narrowed, his long eyebrows twitching. What did you just say? I said your energy is unstable. You're forcing it, I said, staring him down. If you keep pushing, your blood will reverse its flow and attack your heart. You might have had 3 days to live, but if you strike me again, you'll be dead by midnight. The old man's expression shifted from rage to genuine fear. He looked around, realizing the guards and servants were hanging on every word. Everyone get out, he barked. The manager scrambled to usher everyone away. Within a minute, the floor was empty, leaving only me, Xiao Yao, and the old man. Speak, he growled, his voice trembling slightly. What do you know? I smiled. You were half a step away from the true Yuan realm, but your lifespan was running out. You panicked. You took a breaking realm pill to force the breakthrough. You reached the rank, but you lost control of your dantian. Now the side effects are eating you alive. His eyes widened as if he were seeing a ghost. Look at your hands, I continued. Your fingernails are turning black. Purple spots are spreading to your fingertips. Classic signs of chaotic energy. Your hair is falling out in clumps. Your eyes are bloodshot. And you're wearing the scent of a returning origin pill to hide the smell of decay. You can fool them, but you can't fool me. You're a dead man walking. The old man, Duan Gongyu, stared at me with a mix of shock and desperation. He knew I was right. No one could pinpoint his condition that accurately unless they were a master, or unless they'd spoken to the high-level pharmacist he'd been secretly consulting. He took a deep breath, his aggressive stance crumbling into something resembling respect. "Young Master Qin," he began, his voice softening. I was out of line. "My name is Duan Gongyu." He looked at me pleadingly. "Since you can see my affliction, I assume you have a way to fix it?" I gave him a slight nod. "Of course. Your problem is serious, but not impossible to solve. If we use the right medicine, we can neutralize the chaos in your energy sea. Not only will you live, but your cultivation will finally stabilize in the true Yuan realm." Duan Gongyu's eyes lit up with pure ecstasy. He didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees right there on the floor, bowing deeply. "Young Master Qin, if you can help me survive this, I will serve you like a horse or an ox for the rest of my life. I am at your command." In his eyes, I was no longer a waste. I was his only hope for survival. But I could see the hidden coldness behind his submissive act. He was a desperate man. I knew that if I was just bluffing, if I couldn't actually save him, he would make sure I died 1,000 deaths before he took his last breath. I looked down at him, my expression cold. Duan Gongyu shivered. For a split second, a wave of primal fear washed over him. He felt like a bug under a microscope. He later told me that in that moment, he forgot I was a teenager. He felt like he was standing before an ancient monster who had lived for 10,000 years. I didn't care about his internal struggle. I had been a god emperor in my past life. I'd seen every trick, every betrayal, and every fake smile the world had to offer. The coldness of the Qin family had already hardened my heart. "Get up," I said flatly. "Do you have silver needles?" He blinked, confused for a second, then nodded frantically. Yes, right away." He ordered his staff to bring a set. As I prepped the needles, Duan Gongyu watched me with lingering doubt. To most people, needles were for common doctors treating peasants, stimulating pressure points, clearing blood flow, or draining toxins. High-level cultivators rarely used such primitive methods. I didn't explain. I moved. My hand was a blur. I drove the first needle straight into his chest, hitting the Tanjong point. Duan Gongyu gasped. His pupils dilated. The moment the needle sank in, a cool, refreshing sensation surged through his chest. The suffocating tension he'd felt for weeks vanished instantly. I didn't stop. I hammered the second needle into the Baihui point at the top of his head, then the third into his upper spine, the fourth into the middle, and the fifth at the base. I finished by placing the sixth and seventh needles into his temples. My movements were fluid, like water. To Duan Gongyu, it didn't look like medical treatment. It looked like a high-level sword dance. Every strike was precise, elegant, and infused with a hidden power. He could feel it now. Each needle acted like a tiny reservoir, slowly leaking spirit energy into his meridians. The violent, chaotic energy that had been tearing his body apart began to settle. Under the guidance of those 7 tiny streams of power, his internal energy started flowing in perfect order again. For the first time in months, he felt peace. "Young Master Qin," he breathed out, his voice trembling with genuine awe. He tried to bow again, but I held up a hand. "Don't move," I warned. "The needles stay in for half an hour until the energy is fully absorbed." "Thank you," he whispered, his entire body shaking with relief. "If not for you, I would be a corpse by tomorrow." "Don't get ahead of yourself," I said, glancing at him. "I've only suppressed the chaos. To actually cure you and stabilize your realm, we need a specific pill." "What pill?" he asked urgently. "A returning origin pill." Duan Gongyu's face went pale. "A returning origin pill? That's a grade 4 spirit pill. They're incredibly rare. Even the entire Heaven Sword sect only has a few." I looked him dead in the eye. "I can refine it, but you need to find the ingredients." He nearly choked. Refine a grade 4 pill? That required a grade 4 alchemist. There wasn't a single one in the entire region. His respect for me shifted from gratitude to something bordering on worship. "Master Qin," he said, his voice thick with reverence. "I will find the materials. Whatever it takes." "Good. Get on it," I said. "But today, I came to the Spirit Pill Pavilion for something else. I need purple spirit vine. I assume you have it." "Yes, of course." Duan Gongyu nodded vigorously. "Please, let me personally show you our best stock." I nodded, letting him lead the way. Outside the room, the rest of the pavilion, the guards, the other alchemists, and the apprentices were still waiting, expecting to see me dragged out in chains. They had no idea that the man they thought was a waste now held the life of their master in his hands. The servants and workers gathered outside the hall, whispering among themselves. Some of them looked at Xiao Yao with pity. They thought she had followed a reckless master who would only lead her to her death. One female servant shook her head, feeling a pang of regret. She had always been on good terms with Xiao Yao and had even urged her to leave me before things got this bad. Now, she was sure we were both finished. The crowd waited, some hoping for a show and others just wanting to buy pills for the upcoming Heaven Sword sect entrance exams. They expected me to be dragged out in chains, or worse. Then, the doors of the Spirit Pill Pavilion swung open. The crowd surged forward, but then they froze. Their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. The scene they expected, a broken, punished waste, was nowhere to be found. Instead, I walked out into the main hall with a calm, indifferent expression. I strolled through the aisles, picking out herbs as if I owned the place. But that wasn't what shocked them. It was the man walking beside me. An old man with hair as white as snow followed at my side, his back slightly bowed in respect. He wore a constant, flattering smile, pointing out the properties of different herbs like a humble apprentice. Most people didn't recognize him, but the alchemists and apprentices in the pavilion were paralyzed. That was Elder Duan Gongyu, the sitting elder of the entire Spirit Pill Pavilion. They rubbed their eyes, unable to believe what they were seeing. This was the cold, arrogant, and high-status Elder Duan. Why was he acting like a servant to a waste from the Qin family? And why were there silver needles sticking out of his body? They had 1,000 questions, but no one dared to breathe a word. Master Qin, Duan Gongyu said, bowing low. The purple spirit vine on display isn't the best quality. We have much better stock in the back. I'll have it brought to you immediately. He called over the pavilion manager. The manager was a sharp man. He saw the way the elder was acting and immediately understood that I was someone he couldn't afford to offend. He even bowed toward Xiao Yao, who looked completely overwhelmed. She had lived in the shadow of the Qin family for so long that she never dreamed a high-ranking manager would treat her with such respect. The manager returned quickly with the premium purple spirit vine. I inspected it. It was much better than the trash out front. Good, I said, giving it a squeeze. Now, prepare a refining room for me. At once, Duan Gongyu turned to the manager. Get the best room ready for Master Qin. Now, Duan Gongyu rubbed his hands together, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. He desperately wanted to see if I actually knew how to refine pills. Meanwhile, back at the Qin estate, Qin Tianxiong sat in the main courtyard, feeling a strange sense of unease. His nephew, Qin's son, sat across from him. Your father should have been back by now, Qin Tianxiong said, tapping his fingers on the stone table. Qin's son looked grim. He said he was going to the Black Wind Mountains to kill Qin Futian and gather herbs for my exam preparation. Even if something went wrong with the hunt, he should have returned days ago. Qin Futian is nothing to worry about, Qin Tianxiong muttered. Your father killing him is a certainty. Perhaps he was delayed by something else. Don't worry too much. Qin's son nodded, though the worry didn't fade. How are your preparations for the Heaven Sword sect exam? Qin Tianxiong asked. Qin Sen's face lit up with confidence. Don't worry, uncle. I'm ready. I have absolute certainty that I will pass. Qin Tianxiong smiled. The Qin family had struggled to become a first-rate clan in Cloud Azure City because they lacked disciples in the Heaven Sword sect. They had once considered sending me, but the elders decided against it. I wasn't blood-related to their branch. When they found me as a baby, I had a jade pendant with the name Qin on it, but I wasn't one of their Qins. They chose to keep me in the family as a tool, a weapon to fight their battles and seize resources from other clans. But now, if Qin's son entered the sect, the family would finally have real status. Prepare well, Qin Tianxiong encouraged him. I look forward to your performance tomorrow. Back at the Spirit Pill Pavilion, the room was ready. I planned to refine 2 batches, Emerald Spirit Pills and Spirit Accumulation Pills. The latter was common, but for me, it was fuel for my creation cauldron to produce more creation water. The Emerald Spirit Pills, however, were for Xiao Yao. Her talent was poor, but with my methods, I could turn a mediocre talent into a genius that could suppress an entire era. Master Qin. Duan Gongyu stood by, fidgeting nervously. May I observe while you refine? I glanced at the needles in his body and nodded. You may. Remove the needles first. How much you learn depends on your own ability. If any other alchemist had heard me, they would have thought I was insane. Duan Gongyu wasn't just an elder. He was the top alchemist in the region. But today, he was nothing more than a student. Duan Gongyu was a master capable of refining second-grade treasure pills. In the Tianyan continent, pills were ranked from 1 to 9. The higher the grade, the more precious the medicine. But the real measure of quality lay in the pill veins, the glowing patterns on the surface. A single vein meant the pill was common, the lowest of the low. 2 veins were better. But 3 or more. That made it a treasure pill. Even a simple first-grade spirit accumulation pill became a treasure pill if it had 3 veins. Duan Gongyu could consistently produce second-grade pills with 3 veins. In a backwater like Cloud Azure City, that made him a god. Most alchemists here, like Wu Kaiha from the Wu family, struggled just to finish a second-grade pill without it exploding in their faces. Even in the massive Heaven Sword sect, there were probably only 3 people with Duan Gongyu's skill. To do what he did, you usually needed to be a third-grade alchemy grandmaster. Let me handle the fire for you, young Master Qin, Duan Gongyu said. He moved quickly, pulling the silver needles from his body. He was eager, rubbing his hands together like an apprentice. For low-level pills, a normal fire was enough. You just added fuel to boost the heat. But for high-level refining, you needed spirit fire, flames born from the essence of heaven and earth. I didn't have spirit fire yet, but for what I was making today, charcoal would suffice. Start the fire, I commanded. Duan Gongyu didn't hesitate. The first step was warming the cauldron. Most alchemists skipped this, thinking it was a waste of time for low-grade pills. I wasn't most alchemists. I chased perfection in everything. As the flames rose, I ran my fingertips lightly along the inner wall of the cauldron. It looked like I was checking for dust. In reality, I was feeling the metal's grain, its density, and its hidden flaws. In an instant, I had mapped the cauldron's soul in my mind. Increase the heat by 30%, I said. The fire roared. I began dropping the first herb, Emperor's Yellow Essence. As it hit the heat, a faint fragrance filled the room. I watched it melt, pulling the pure essence out while discarding the dross with a flick of my wrist. Drop the heat by 10%. I moved to the second herb. Duan Gongyu watched me, his eyes wide with shock. He could see that my extractions were flawless. Not a drop of essence was wasted. I knew exactly how much heat every leaf and root needed. One by one, I processed all 11 ingredients. Then came the fusion. This was the hardest part, the timing, the sequence, the delicate balance of liquids. I stayed calm. I felt like a master craftsman, focused and steady. When the liquids finally merged, the aroma in the room became intoxicating. Now, it was time for the vein inscribing. This was like carving an array into liquid. My hands began to move, my fingers dancing through the air like flowing water. My entire aura shifted. I was no longer just a craftsman. I was a celestial being performing a sword dance. Every movement was elegant, precise, and blindingly fast. Duan Gongyu was frozen. He had traveled the world and seen high-level alchemists work before, but this was different. He realized, with a sinking feeling of disbelief, that my technique surpassed everyone he had ever met. How was this possible? I was just a kid from a small family in a tiny city. Rise, I barked. The shout snapped Duan Gongyu out of his trance. I slapped the lid of the cauldron. With a wave of my hand, a string of glowing pills flew into the air. They landed perfectly in the jade bottles waiting on the table. It's done, I said. 16 pills. Duan Gongyu's jaw hit the floor. He had refined spirit accumulation pills thousands of times, but he never got more than 9 or 10 from a single batch. I had nearly doubled the yield. And as they flew past, he saw the glow. These weren't just pills. Young Master Qin, may I see them? He asked. His forehead was slick with sweat, but he didn't care. His hands shook as he reached for the bottle. He poured them out onto a white jade tray. They rolled like precious pearls. 3 veins, 4, 5, 7. Duan Gongyu looked like he was about to collapse. He nearly dropped to his knees. Out of 16 pills, 3 had 3 veins, 4 had 4, another 4 had 5, 4 more had 6, and 1, a single, perfect pill, had 7 veins. In his eyes, I wasn't a genius anymore. I was a god. I looked at the tray and sighed. I shook my head, genuinely disappointed. It's been too long, I muttered. I'm getting rusty. I wanted 8 or 9 veins, but without spirit fire, reaching the Saint grade was impossible. Plus, this cauldron was trash. Even if it was the best the Spirit Pill Pavilion had to offer, it was still just a hunk of cheap metal. To me, it was barely a tool. To Duan Gongyu, it was a miracle. I looked at the tray of pills and felt nothing but disappointment. My standard was much higher than this. Duan Gongyu, however, looked like he was having a heart attack. He stared at me, his heart racing so fast I could practically hear it thumping against his ribs. Young Master Qin, he stammered, his voice thick with awe. Would you be willing to take this old man as your master? I raised an eyebrow. The room went silent. Duan Gongyu realized his mistake instantly. His face went pale, then bright red. No, that's not what I meant, he shouted, waving his hands frantically. I meant, would you allow me to take you as my disciple? No, that's wrong too. He shook his head so hard I thought it might fall off. Young Master Qin, would you be willing to take me as your disciple? I couldn't help but chuckle. I looked him dead in the eye. Do you really think you have the qualifications to be my disciple? Duan Gongyu froze. It was like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over his head. He woke up from his fantasy. He was a great alchemist in this city, but compared to the godlike skill I had just shown, he was nothing. Someone with my talent probably had a line of geniuses miles long waiting to serve me. I have overstepped, he said quickly, bowing low. Please, do not be offended. He was terrified of losing my favor. He knew that as long as I didn't hate him, he might still have a chance to learn a fraction of what I knew. You saw the process just now, I said calmly. How much you actually learned depends on your own talent. Yes. He nodded like a woodpecker. He was already playing back the images of my movements in his head, treating them like a sacred treasure. For now, don't try to refine anything, I warned him. Until your internal injuries from that cultivation deviation are fully healed, don't touch your inner chi. I understand, he replied respectfully. He was itching to try out what he'd seen, but he didn't dare cross me. At that moment, Xiaoyao walked over and handed me a cup of tea. I took it and drank it in one go. Xiaoyao, watch closely, I told her. Once your cultivation level is high enough, I'll teach you the art of alchemy myself. Yes, young master, she chirped, her eyes bright. Standing to the side, Duan Gongyu's eyes turned green with envy. This little maid was getting personal instruction from a master? What kind of incredible luck did she have? When Xiaoyao looked over at him, he immediately forced a giant, friendly smile and nodded to her. Xiaoyao nodded back, feeling a secret sense of pride. She had just watched the head of the Spirit Pill Pavilion beg to be her master's student. Her young master was truly incredible. I didn't stop there. I started a second batch, this time making marrow-cleansing pills. The yield and quality were even better than the first. I took one myself, feeling a cool sensation wash through my body. My connection to the world's spiritual energy sharpened instantly. I handed the rest of the bottle to Xiaoyao. Take 2 of these every month. Don't skip. In the God realm, these pills were common because the materials were cheap, but they required a level of control that alchemists like Duan Gongyu couldn't even dream of. In a low-level place like this, these pills were heaven-defying. After a few months of this, Xiaoyao's talent would rival the top geniuses of the entire continent. Young Master Qin, Duan Gongyu said, breaking the silence. What are your plans? I heard you wanted to take the entrance exam for the Heavenly Sword Sect. That's the plan, I nodded. There's no need for an exam, he said eagerly. With your skills, you could walk right in and become the chief alchemy elder. I can arrange it. I frowned. My voice turned cold. Elder Duan, keep what happened today to yourself. Do you understand? That includes what happened to Wu Kaihe and Su Yang. I wasn't ready to show my full hand to the world yet. Talent like mine would bring unwanted attention and endless trouble before I was strong enough to crush it. Since I still held Duan Gongyu's life in my hands, I knew he would stay quiet. I understand, young master. Not a word, he promised. He quickly called his staff together and gave them a terrifying warning. If anyone leaked a single detail about what happened in the pavilion today, the consequences would be lethal. The customers outside had seen my clash with Su Yang, but they hadn't seen the kill, and they certainly hadn't seen the alchemy. Xiao Yao and I stayed at the pavilion that night. After she took her first 2 pills, her progress was explosive. Under my guidance, she broke through her second meridian by midnight, officially becoming a second-stage martial trainee. She was thrilled, but she didn't get cocky. She sat back down and went straight back to practicing. I watched her satisfied. She had the discipline. She could handle the loneliness of the path. I retreated to the room Duan Gongyu had prepared for me. It was the best in the building, luxurious, smelling of ancient herbs, and even fitted with a simple spirit-gathering array. I pulled out 3 of my 3-vein spirit accumulation pills. The stuff I'd found in the Qin family storage was garbage, but these were different. 3 glowing lines swirled around the surface like tiny dragons. I tossed them into my creation cauldron. The result? 10 drops of creation water. Then, I tried 3 of my 7-vein pills. Those yielded 15 drops. My theory was confirmed. The higher the quality of the pill, the more creation water I got. If I could make 9-vein Saint-grade pills, a single pill might give me 6 drops. That was 6 times more efficient than refining raw herbs. But making Saint-grade pills wasn't easy. I was missing 2 things, a spirit fire and a better cauldron. I wondered if my internal creation cauldron could be used for refining, but since it was locked inside my consciousness, I couldn't physically control it yet. I leaned back. Maybe the Heavenly Sword sect would have the answers I needed. For now, I had work to do. If this cauldron was a real treasure under my control, I should have been able to summon it from my body. But I couldn't. I tried to pull it out, but the divine creation cauldron wouldn't budge. That meant one of 2 things. Either I hadn't truly mastered it yet, or there was a side to this thing I didn't understand. It came from the forbidden realm of the Red Bone era. If I wanted to unlock its secrets, I'd likely have to explore that forbidden territory myself. I pushed the thought aside and closed my eyes. My breathing became rhythmic and steady as I drifted into a deep meditative state. The next day, the area 10 miles outside Cloud Azure City was packed. Wind Chasing Valley was a sea of people. This was the site for the Heavenly Sword sect's new disciple entrance exam. The Great Jing Kingdom was divided into 5 major regions: North Yu, East Wasteland, Central Plains, South Ridge, and West Chuan. We were in the North Yu region, which consisted of 19 provinces. Cloud Azure City sat within Liang Province. The Heavenly Sword sect ruled over 3 provinces: Liang, Ku, and Li. Within these 1,000 miles, the sect was the undisputed overlord. Even in the context of the vast North Yu region, they had once been legendary. Young cultivators flooded into the valley, heading for the registration points. They were a sea of handsome men and beautiful women, all of them radiating confidence and ambition. But the crowd of spectators was even larger. Everyone wanted to see which geniuses would actually make the cut. Jiang Yanlan is here, someone shouted. The crowd surged. Every head turned toward her. She was wearing a sky-blue dress, her long hair pinned up to reveal a pale, slender neck. Her eyes were like autumn pools, her features sharp and elegant. She radiated an aura of cold, lonely pride. In this year's exam, she was the favorite to win. As she walked into the valley, young men rushed forward to greet her. Many had admired her for years, trying any way they could to get close. Jiang Yunlan barely acknowledged them. She gave a few cold nods and kept moving. On a flat slope overlooking the valley, rows of chairs had been set up for the VIPs. These were the heads of the prestigious families from Cloud Azure City and the surrounding areas. Jiang Zhinshan, the head of the Jiang family, sat prominently among them. Near him were the heads of the Su, Lu, and Qin families. Qin Tianxiong sat just a few seats away from Jiang Zhinshan. Master Jiang, congratulations, Lu Yuanhui, head of the Lu family, said with a flattering smile. You've raised an incredible daughter. You flatter me, Jiang Zhinshan replied, waving a hand dismissively, though he couldn't hide his grin. I heard your daughter was already scouted by a sect elder, someone else added. She doesn't even need to take this exam to get in, does she? Jiang Zhinshan shook his head. That won't do. The Heavenly Sword sect has rules. To be a disciple, you must pass the test. But I'm not worried. With her talent, she'll be the top performer today. He sounded smug, and he had reason to be. He'd done his homework on the competition. Only 3 people posed a threat to his daughter, Su Tenglong from our city, and 2 outsiders named Lei Chong and Yi Yu. He knew their strength levels, and none of them matched Yunlan. What they didn't know was that 7 days ago, his daughter had broken through again. The top spot was practically hers. Well, nothing is certain, Jiang Jinshan said, pretending to be humble. Young Su Tenglong is very capable. And then there's Lei Chong. He turned to a middle-aged man in a fancy silk hat nearby. Brother Leiao, it's been 3 years. I heard your son reached the 9th stage of the Meridian Opening Realm and mastered the 4th level of the Thunderstrike Blade. Impressive. He's nothing compared to your girl, Leiao replied, waving it off. I just hope she goes easy on him if they meet in the arena. Jiang Jinshan laughed and turned to a stern-looking man with a mustache. And Master Yi, your son Yi Yu is a frontrunner too. I have high hopes for him. His father just gave a stiff nod. He wasn't the type for small talk. Jiang Jinshan was in his element, playing the room and soaking up the respect. The Jiang family was already the strongest in the city. If Yunlan became an inner disciple, their status would skyrocket. They wouldn't just rule the city, they'd be a top-tier clan in the whole province. Everyone wanted to be on his good side. Qin Tianxiong, however, looked miserable. The cancelled engagement had been a massive blow to the Qin family's reputation. He had to sit there and swallow his pride because the Jiangs were simply too powerful to provoke. Then, someone decided to stir the pot. Hey, Jiang Jinshan, a burly, bald man called out. It was Xiong Buyue, head of the Xiong family. I heard your daughter was betrothed to that Qin Futian kid from the Qin family. What happened there? Jiang Jinshan's eyes turned cold for a split second before the fake smile returned. You're right, Master Xiong. There was an arrangement, but it was just a drunken mistake made by my father years ago. Master Qin here can testify to that. He looked at Qin Tianxiong. It wasn't a question, it was a threat. Old man Jiang was indeed drinking that day. Qin Tianxiong said flatly. Whether it was a mistake or not, I couldn't say. Jiang Jinshan chuckled. Well, a grandfather's promise shouldn't be broken lightly. But the kids these days have their own ideas. They've made a pact. This exam will decide if the engagement stands. The crowd's interest spiked. A pact? What kind of pact? Jiang Jinshan raised his voice so everyone could hear. We elders shouldn't interfere in the business of the youth. But I know the deal. The engagement only stays if Qin Futian actually passes the exam. Jiang Jinshan's voice boomed across the valley. He announced that even if I only became a lowly servant disciple of the Heavenly Sword sect, the engagement would still stand. But if I failed the exam entirely, the contract was void. The crowd went quiet for a second before the whispering started. Everyone knew my situation. My dantian was shattered. I was a waste. By setting this condition, Jiang Jinshan wasn't being fair. He was publicly throwing me away while making it look like it was my own fault. He wanted me to fail miserably so he could wash his hands of the Qin family forever. Xiong Buyue, the bald head of the Xiong family, let out a loud laugh. He didn't hold back. He told Jiang Jinshan straight to his face that this move was cold-hearted. Everyone knew I was crippled, so setting a bet I couldn't possibly win was just a dirty trick. Suddenly, a heavy bell rang out. The sound echoed through the entire valley. It was time. The entrance exam for the Heavenly Sword sect was officially starting. An old man with long, flowing eyebrows and sharp, piercing eyes stepped into the center of the crowd. He was thin but stood tall, radiating a powerful aura. He cleared his throat and introduced himself as Yuan Hong, the man in charge of the assessment. The crowd gasped. Yuan Hong was a famous elder of the sect. Some whispered that he was a peak martial artist at the Great Sea Realm, while others claimed he had already stepped into the true Origin Realm. Either way, he was a powerhouse. Yuan Hong raised a hand to silence the noise. He didn't waste time with flowery speeches. He laid out the rules clearly. Anyone under 20 years old could participate, provided they had reached at least the 3rd level of the Pulse Opening Realm. The exam had 2 rounds. The first was the Puppet Valley. We had to sprint through a valley filled with mechanical puppets in under 300 breaths, roughly 5 minutes. Only the top 20 finishers would move on to the next stage. The second round was a tournament. The top 20 would fight until only 10 remained, then 5. Those 5 would become outer disciples. But the ultimate winner, the #1 champion, would be the only one granted the prestigious status of an inner disciple. A wave of shock hit the candidates. Thousands of people were here, and only one would make it as an inner disciple. It was brutal. But for most, just getting their foot in the door as a servant disciple was enough. Once you were inside the sect, you could always climb the ranks later. The exam began. To keep things fair, only one person was allowed into the valley at a time. The puppet valley was rigged with 13 mechanical puppets controlled by complex formations. They were programmed to attack anyone who entered their zone without mercy. The first candidate charged in. He was fast, moving like a cat as he dodged the first few puppets. These machines had the strength of a level 6 martial artist, but the kid was agile. He cleared half the distance in less than 100 breaths. Then, everything changed. A faster, more aggressive puppet lunged from the side. A heavy blow landed squarely on the boy's chest, sending him flying. Before he could recover, 3 more puppets swarmed him. He couldn't break free. The clock hit 300 breaths, and he was disqualified. The next 3 candidates fared no better. One ran out of time, and the other 2 were beaten so badly they had to retreat. The crowd started to get nervous. Those puppets were relentless. It looked like the passing rate was going to be pathetic. For a while, nobody dared to step up. They were all waiting, hoping to see someone find a trick or a shortcut. But after a dozen more failures, it became clear there were no shortcuts. You either had the speed to outrun them or the raw power to smash through them. "Let me try," a voice grunted. A thick, muscular teenager stepped out from the crowd. People recognized him immediately. It was Wu Yunhao from the Wu family. He was well known among the younger generation. If he couldn't do it, most of us didn't stand a chance. Wu Yunhao bolted into the valley. For a big guy, he moved with surprising grace. He reached the halfway point in just 70 breaths. That's when a massive puppet, nearly at the Great Sea realm in strength, blocked his path. The puppet swung a heavy metallic arm, the wind whistling with the force of the strike. Wu Yunhao didn't dodge. He roared and met the attack with his fist. The sound of the collision was like a hammer hitting a stone wall. The force sent Wu Yunhao skidding backward, but he used the momentum to roll, kicking off the ground and springing into the air. He bypassed the remaining puppets like a whirlwind. The crowd erupted in cheers as he crossed the finish line. Wu Yunhao of the Wu family passes. Yuan Hong announced. Time, 192 breaths. Envious eyes followed him as his family rushed to celebrate. The Wu family was just a third-rate clan, but this changed everything for them. Having a son in the Heavenly Sword sect meant they were finally moving up in the world. High on the hill, among the sect leaders and clan heads, I saw the Wu family patriarch beaming with pride. But I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at the valley, measuring the puppets, and waiting for my turn to show them what a waste could really do. The heads and elders of the nearby clans crowded around the Wu family patriarch, showering him with praise. Wu Yunhao hadn't just passed. He'd finished in under 200 breaths. That put him in the top 20, practically guaranteeing him a spot in the Heavenly Sword sect. For a clan like theirs, that was a golden ticket. Seeing his success sparked a fire in the others. More disciples stepped forward, eager to prove themselves, but the valley was a meat grinder. The failure rate remained brutal. By the time half a day had passed, nearly 300 people had tried their luck. Only about a dozen had made it through. The odds were even worse than we expected. As night fell, the air grew heavy. The organizers lit massive lamps filled with jade-horned rhino oil. The stuff burned bright and slow, turning the dark valley into a stage as bright as high noon. Nobody left. Even those who had failed stayed behind, staring into the valley, trying to learn from the winners and figure out where they went wrong. They were already thinking about next year. Around midnight, a sudden wave of whispers broke the silence. Lei Chong was stepping up. He was from Heaven Punishment City and was one of the heavy favorites to take the top spot in this trial. The moment he entered the valley, he was a blur. His speed and raw power were on a different level compared to everyone who came before him. When he crossed the finish line, the timer stopped at 113 breaths. The crowd gasped. He had nearly broken the 100-breath mark, absolutely shattering the previous record of 149. Lei Chong looked pleased with himself, offering a confident smile to the people cheering his name. Shortly after, another favorite named Yiyu stepped into the valley. He was like a shadow moving through the metal giants. His final time was 114 breaths, just one breath behind Lei Chong. It was a razor-thin margin, a difference of a single heartbeat, but it was enough to keep the tension high. At dawn, Su Tenglong made his move. Along with Jiang Yunlan, Lei Chong, and Yiyu, he was considered one of the big four of this recruitment. Every eye was on him as he bolted. He moved with a ferocity that seemed to ignore the puppets entirely. When he reached the end, the announcement sent a shockwave through the valley, 109 breaths. He had broken the 110 barrier. Currently, he was the man to beat. The Su family patriarch beamed, his face flushed with pride. Even he hadn't been sure his son could pull off the top spot. But there he was, sitting at rank 1. Congratulations, Brother Su. Lei Chong and Yiyu called out, showing respect to the new leader. Su Tenglong cupped his fists, his face glowing with excitement as he thanked them. After that peak, the energy dipped. The next few hours were a slog of mediocrity. Most failed, and the few who passed clocked in well over 200 breaths. As the morning star rose in the east, a full day and night had passed. About 700 people had completed their runs, leaving roughly 300 to go. Everyone was waiting for one person, Jiang Yunlan. She was the undisputed favorite. People were betting on whether she could crush Su Tenglong's record. But she wasn't in a hurry. She sat alone on a high cliff, her eyes closed, spirit energy swirling faintly around her. Even in this chaotic environment, she was focused on her cultivation. Her calm resolve only made the crowd admire her more. Around mid-morning on the second day, Qin's son stepped forward. His appearance drew a lot of stares, mostly because of the name he carried. That's Qin's son. I heard someone whisper nearby. I didn't realize he'd reached the 9th level of the pulse-opening realm. That's because the Qin family used to have Qin Futian, another replied. With a genius like that around, nobody cared about Qin Sr. True, Qin Futian was the real deal. It's a tragedy, really. He was the only one who could have suppressed Jiang Yunlan's talent. If he hadn't become a waste, this top spot would be his without question. Definitely. No matter how great Jiang Yunlan is, she couldn't match Futian back then. Why else would Jiang Jinshan have practically begged to betroth her to him? What a cruel twist of fate. I stood there, listening to them talk about me like I was a ghost. But I wasn't the only one listening. Qin Sen's face turned a dark, sickly shade of red. He had lived his whole life in my shadow. Every time he worked hard, every time he made progress, people just compared him to me. To the world, I was the sun, and he was just a flickering candle. The resentment in his eyes was palpable. He wanted to prove that now that I was broken, he was the only genius left in the Qin family. Qin's son marched into the valley, his jaw set tight. He wanted to erase my name with his performance. The moment he started, he exploded into motion. He was fast enough to rival Su Tenglong. He was using the falling leaf footwork, a black-grade movement technique. In a place like Cloud Storage City, a black-grade technique was the pinnacle of power. Most major clans only possessed the mid-grade versions as their ultimate secrets. I remembered that technique. I was the one who had nearly died at Falling Phoenix Mountain to secure a copy of it for the clan. Back then, the elders wouldn't even let me see the full manual. But Qin's son had been given everything. The full scrolls, the personal guidance of the elders, and all the resources he could eat. He reached the halfway point in just 50 breaths. He was moving like a gust of wind, dodging the puppets with practiced ease. The crowd began to cheer, impressed by his display. For a moment, it looked like the Qin family might actually have a new star. The crowd went wild. I watched as Qin's son crossed the finish line, his chest heaving, his face flushed with a mix of exhaustion and arrogance. 106 breaths. The number echoed through the valley like a thunderclap. It was faster than Lei Chong, faster than Su Tenglong, and faster than Yiyu. For a moment, the entire Qin family seemed to swell with pride. They hadn't expected this. They thought they had lost their only star when my Dantian shattered, but here was Qin's son, stepping out of my shadow and into the light. Up on the hillside, the atmosphere shifted instantly. I saw the heads of the other great clans swarming around Qin Tianxiong, their faces plastered with fake, oily smiles. "Congratulations, clan leader Qin," one of them shouted. "The Qin family truly breeds geniuses. With this performance, Qin's son is guaranteed a spot in the Heaven Sword sect." "Brother Qin," another chimed in, leaning closer. "I have a daughter, very beautiful, quite talented herself. Perhaps we should discuss an engagement for Qin's son?" They were falling over themselves to get close to him, acting like I never existed. They even started comparing him to me. In my opinion, someone remarked loud enough for everyone to hear. Qin Sen's talent isn't below that of the former Qin Futian. Qin Tianxiong loved every second of it. He tried to act humble, but the smug look on his face gave him away. "You flatter him too much," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "My grandson has always been diligent. He just prefers to stay out of the spotlight, unlike some who were arrogant and loved to show off. He didn't have to say my name. Everyone knew who he was talking about." He went on, his voice dripping with disdain for me. "If we're being honest about raw talent, Qin Futian never actually measured up to Qin Sr. Son is focused. He isn't distracted by external things." Even the city lord, Pei Nian, walked over to offer his praise. In Cloud Storage City, the city lord's office represented the imperial government. They had the power to move thousands of troops and held deep connections with the major sects. Even a man as proud as Qin Tianxiong stood up quickly, showing a level of respect he gave to no one else. "A new genius for the Qin family is a light for our entire city," Pei Nian said with a smile. Qin Tianxiong beamed. I could see the thought crossing his mind. With Qin's son, who needs Qin Futian? The first round was reaching its peak. Qin Sen's name was on everyone's lips, and people were already placing bets on him winning the entire selection. But there was still one person left, Jiang Yunlan. She had been sitting quietly on a blue stone all morning, ignored by the chaos. As the sun reached its zenith, she finally stood up. She wore a long, sky-blue dress that fluttered in the breeze. She looked cold, distant, and utterly confident. Before she entered the valley, she paused. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for someone. When she didn't find who she was looking for, a small, mocking smile touched her lips. "Qin Futian," she whispered to herself, "are you really too afraid to show up?" She remembered my words at the Qin estate, how I refused to back down. But now, seeing that I wasn't there, she felt a flicker of disappointment. To her, I was just a coward who couldn't face reality. Then, she moved. She was like a blue phantom. Her movement technique was breathtaking, leaving a trail of azure afterimages as she drifted through the valley. She didn't just dodge the puppets. She flowed around them like water. When she reached the other side, the entire wind-chasing valley went silent. Everyone held their breath until the elder, Yuan Hong, stepped forward with a smile. Jiang Yunlan, of the Jiang clan, 96 breaths. The silence broke into a roar. Less than 100 breaths. It was a level of talent that made Qin Sen's record look like child's play. She was the undisputed favorite now. "She's a monster," someone muttered. "Is there anyone who can actually compete with her?" "What about Qin Futian?" a voice asked from the back. A few years ago, everyone said his talent was higher than hers. A wave of laughter and mockery followed. "Qin Futian is history. He's a cripple with a broken dantian. You can't compare a fallen star to the midday sun. I heard if he passed this exam, their engagement would still stand," someone whispered. "Pass. Look around. The first round is almost over, and he hasn't even shown his face. He knows he's a waste. He's probably hiding in a hole somewhere to avoid the embarrassment." Up on the hill, the crowd shifted again. The sycophants abandoned Qin Tianxiong and rushed toward Jiang Zhinshan, the head of the Jiang family. Qin Tianxiong sat back down, his face darkening. He had been so proud of Qin's son just moments ago, but now, that pride was turning into a bitter pill. Down in the valley, Elder Yuan Hong looked at Jiang Yunlan with genuine warmth. "Well done," he said. "Thank you, master," she replied, bowing slightly. It was official. Yuan Hong had already taken her as his personal disciple. The gap between her and the rest of us wasn't just wide, it was a canyon. And as far as they were concerned, I wasn't even at the edge. I was at the bottom. Yuan Hong was beaming with pride over Jiang Yunlan's performance. It wasn't just luck. Over the past few weeks, Yuan Hong had personally coached her in cultivation and movement techniques. That was the only reason she had broken through her bottleneck 7 days ago and cleared the Puppet Valley in under 100 breaths. Prepare yourself for the second round, Yuan Hong told her warmly. Then, she turned to the crowd, her voice booming. Does anyone else wish to participate in the first round? If not, we will move on. The winner of the first round is Jiang Yun. Wait. A girl's voice, clear as a ringing bell, cut through the air. My young master wants to register for the exam. Xiao Yao walked forward, leading the way. She wore a simple green dress, but she looked different. Her skin was fair, her eyes were bright, and she carried an air of elegance that seemed to float above the mundane world. For a moment, the crowd was stunned. They realized this maid's beauty was actually on par with Jiang Yunlan's. But while Jiang Yunlan was cold and arrogant, Xiao Yao felt warm and full of life. Who is that? I've never seen such a beautiful girl in Yunsong City, someone gasped. That must be Qin Futian's maid, another replied. How do you know? Are you blind? Look who's behind her. The crowd's focus shifted instantly to the young man in white walking behind her. I felt their stares, but I didn't care. I wore a simple white robe, my hair flowing freely. I walked with a calm, detached grace, looking like a sword immortal who had descended from the heavens. Even Jiang Yunlan froze for a second, her eyes widening. The whispers started immediately. It really is Qin Futian. Why is he here? Isn't his dantian shattered? He's a cripple. Jiang Yunlan's expression shifted. She walked toward me, her eyes flickering with a strange emotion. Qin Futian, I thought you wouldn't dare show your face. Her voice wavered slightly. She could feel that I was different today, and that realization made her uneasy. She hated that feeling. I looked at her with total indifference. Why wouldn't I come? Didn't we agree that today's exam would decide the fate of our engagement? My voice was flat. To me, she was nothing more than a speck of dust. This bothered her even more. In the past, I had been proud, but I had never been this cold to her. I had even tried to please her back then. She couldn't handle the shift in power. Why bother? She sneered, her face twisting into a mask of mockery. If you hadn't come, the engagement would have ended quietly. But you came here with a broken dantian just to save face? You're going to fail, and you'll be humiliated in front of everyone. I looked at her and shook my head, a cold smile touching my lips. You think you know me? A summer insect cannot understand ice. A frog in a well cannot conceive of the ocean. To me, you are nothing but an ant. I meant every word. Jiang Yunlan flushed with anger. Self-righteous to the end, she hissed. She didn't want to waste any more breath on me. Did you bring the marriage contract? I brought it, I said, holding up a roll of red paper. Good, she nodded. Remember your promise. If you fail the Heavenly Sword Sect entrance exam, you will tell everyone yourself that we are finished. From then on, we will have no connection whatsoever. She looked at me with pure disgust, as if she couldn't wait to scrub my name from her life. I just smiled coldly. I felt the same way. The crowd was losing its mind. The rumors were true. The head of the Jiang family, Jiang Zhinshan, had purposefully leaked the details of our bet. Everyone knew that if I passed, even as a lowly handyman disciple, the engagement stayed. If I failed, it was over. The Jiang family really played him, someone whispered. They know he can't pass. When he fails, people will just call him useless instead of blaming the Jiangs for being heartless. If I were him, I would have stayed home. A man should have some self-awareness. He's just here to have his last bit of dignity crushed. Up on the hill, the clan leaders were watching. Clan leader Qin, the head of the Liu family, asked, Is your boy really going to try? Qin Tianxiong narrowed his eyes and shook his head. Qin Futian has nothing to do with the Qin family anymore. He has been expelled. His actions are his own. Inside, Qin Tianxiong was baffled. He had sent Qin Tianxiong to the Black Wind Mountains to finish me off. Had they missed each other? It was a massive forest, so it was possible. He never would have guessed that Qin Tianxiong was already dead by my hand. Down in the valley, Yuan Hong looked at me with blatant impatience. Are you registering or not? If not, get out. My young master is definitely registering. Xiao Yao said quickly. Name, city, and clan, Yuan Hong snapped. Qin Futian. No clan. I stand alone, I said calmly. Yuan Hong scribbled my name down, her annoyance growing. She knew who I was because of Jiang Yunlan. In her eyes, a waist with a broken dantian trying to join the sect was a joke. She thought I was just there to cause trouble. Enter the puppet valley, she commanded. Good luck, young master. Xiao Yao balled her fists, cheering for me. I gave her a small smile and stepped into the valley. Every eye was on me. Some were pitying, some were mocking, but most were just waiting to watch me fail. I stepped forward. My first move didn't look fast, but the ground seemed to shrink beneath my feet. With one stride, I cleared 30 feet. The valley blurred. After images of my body flickered through the passage like ghosts. Before one faded, another appeared further ahead. In less than 20 breaths, I had already bypassed half the mechanical puppets. The second half was supposed to be the real nightmare. 2 puppets there had the strength of Chi Si realm masters, and the number of standard puppets doubled. To everyone else, it was a death trap. To me, it was nothing. I might only be in the pulse opening realm right now, but I possessed the memories of a god emperor. I knew countless movement techniques. I chose a simple one called Step Without Trace. I moved like I was taking a casual stroll in a private garden. When I reached the finish line, the entire valley fell into a deathly silence. You could have heard a needle drop. People stared at me, their faces frozen in shock and disbelief. My young master passed the first round. Xiao Yao's voice broke the silence, her shout filled with pride. Only then did Yuan Hong snap out of her daze. She reached out and struck the bronze bell to record the time. The sound echoed like a clap of thunder, jolting the crowd back to reality. He actually did it? For others, this valley was a grueling struggle that took hundreds of breaths, if they finished at all. I had crossed it in a heartbeat. The crowd rushed toward Yuan Hong to see the official time. 56 breaths, Yuan Hong announced. Her voice trembled. She couldn't hide the shock in her eyes. She couldn't wrap her head around how a waist, with a broken dantian, could achieve a speed that would shame a Chi Si realm master. In truth, I was even faster. Yuan Hong had been so stunned that she forgot to hit the bell immediately. If not for Xiao Yao's reminder, the official time would have been even longer. My actual time was closer to 50 breaths. Nearby, Zhang Yunlan's mouth hung open. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. Earlier, she had finished in 97 breaths, and everyone called her a once-in-a-century genius. I had nearly doubled her speed. I walked over and stood right in front of her. I looked at her with cold, indifferent eyes. I heard you took 97 breaths, I said calmly. And they call you a genius for that? I let a small, mocking smile curl the corner of my mouth. I didn't need to say more. The insult was loud and clear. Zhang Yunlan's face flushed with a mix of shame and rage. Impossible, she hissed, shaking her head. Qin Futian, your dantian is shattered. You're a waste. How could you pass the puppet valley so fast? Shut up. Xiao Yao stepped forward, glaring at the woman who used to be my fiancée. My young master is not a waste. You're the waste. The 2 girls stood face to face. One was a former nameless maid. The other was the golden daughter of the Jiang family. Their statuses should have been worlds apart, but standing there, Xiao Yao didn't look inferior at all. After taking the spirit emerald pill I gave her, her aura was actually more vibrant and refined than Zhang Yunlan's. Zhang Yunlan's brow furrowed in anger. You lowly servant. Who gave you the right to speak to me? She swung her hand, aiming a vicious slap at Xiao Yao's face. Zhang Yunlan was at the 9th level of the pulse opening realm, while Xiao Yao had only just reached the 2nd. But Xiao Yao had been personally trained by me. Xiao Yao flinched for a split second as the hand came toward her, but then the defensive techniques I'd taught her flashed through her mind. Her hand shot out like a spirit snake. She redirected the force of the blow with a subtle flick and, in one fluid motion, slapped Zhang Yunlan right back across the face. Slap. The sound was crisp and loud. 5 red finger marks blossomed on Zhang Yunlan's cheek. The crowd gasped. A maid had just slapped the pride of the Zhang family. They realized then that Xiao Yao wasn't just a servant. She was a cultivator. Zhang Yunlan's entire body shook. She had been too arrogant, assuming a maid was beneath her notice, so she hadn't used any real technique. If she had been serious, Xiao Yao's lack of combat experience would have shown. But the fact remained, she had been hit. You're dead, Zhang Yunlan screamed. Her face was a mask of cold fury. Her spirit ring flashed, and a sharp sword appeared in her hand. She lunged at Xiao Yao. Get back, I barked. I stepped in front of Xiao Yao, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. Jiang Yunlan, do you have a death wish? The sheer killing intent radiating from me made her freeze. A chill climbed up her spine. She felt, for the first time, a genuine sense of terror. I turned my gaze to Yuan Hong. Elder, we are currently in the middle of the Heavenly Sword Sect entrance exams. Is murder permitted here? Stop this instantly, Yuan Hong shouted. She looked annoyed. She didn't want a bloodbath ruining the ceremony. Jiang Yunlan, the exams are still ongoing. Whatever grievances you have, wait until they are over. Jiang Yunlan gripped her sword so hard her knuckles turned white. She wanted to hack Xiao Yao into pieces, but she didn't dare defy her mentor. Fine, she spat, her eyes burning with hate. I'll let you keep your pathetic life for a few more minutes. And you, Qin Futian, for failing to control your servant, you'll pay too. I just let out a short, mocking laugh. She clearly didn't understand the situation. She thought my question to Yuan Hong was a plea for protection. She had no idea that if Yuan Hong hadn't stepped in, she would already be a corpse. The first round is over, Yuan Hong announced loudly. 62 people passed. We will take the top 20. The rest are eliminated. The list was read quickly. I was at the top. The second round begins now, Yuan Hong continued. The arena trials. Opponents will be decided by drawing lots. The top 5 will earn the right to become outer sect disciples. Jiang Yunlan shot me one last icy look as she walked toward the drawing boxes. Qin Futian, she whispered, I hope we meet on that stage. My performance in the Puppet Valley had caught everyone off guard. The crowd whispered, convinced I had simply mastered some high-level movement technique. But movement only got you so far. In the second round, the arena trials, there was nowhere to hide. It was a contest of raw power. Everyone knew my dantian was shattered. They assumed that even if I had some lingering strength, my true combat ability was a hollow shell of what it once was. Jiang Yunlan clearly shared that thought. She stood there, her face still burning from the slap Xiao Yao had given her in front of the entire crowd. To her, it was a stain on her pride that only blood could wash away. She glared at me, her eyes filled with a murderous intent. I knew what she was thinking. She wanted to kill me on that stage to vent her rage, then move on to my lowly maid. The lots were drawn quickly. The top 20 survivors of the valley were paired off. When I looked at my slip, I saw a name that made me pause, Xiongyu. I looked over at her. In my memories, Xiongyu was a good girl. She was the daughter of Xiong Buyue, the head of the Xiong family in Yunsong City. We had grown up together, playing and even practicing martial arts side by side. For a long time, she was like a little shadow, following me wherever I went, even trying to join me in fights until her father dragged her back by the collar. Everything changed when my engagement to Jiang Yunlan was announced. After that, she stopped showing up. Our eyes met across the arena. She didn't look anything like her father. Xiong Buyue was a massive, bald man built like an ox, but Xiongyu was delicate, with large, watery eyes and fair skin. Her gaze wasn't filled with the mockery I saw from others. Instead, I saw a long-lost warmth, mixed with deep sympathy. She clearly thought I was a tragic figure now. To her, I was a broken genius who had lost everything. Brother Futian, she whispered, walking over to me after a moment of hesitation. Her voice was just as I remembered, shy and soft. Xiaoyu, I said, a genuine smile touching my lips. Since the news of my shattered dantian broke, people who used to flatter me had turned cold and cruel. Seeing her like this gave me a rare sense of warmth. Some things in this world hadn't changed. Brother Futian, I've wanted to visit you. I heard about your dantian. She bit her lip, looking down. But my father wouldn't let me go to the Qin estate. Silly girl, I'm fine, I laughed. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping so low it was almost a breath. Brother Futian, don't worry about the match. I won't make you look bad. Or, I can just let you win. I'll pretend I can't handle your attack and let you knock me out of the ring. Okay. I shook my head, amused. She really did pity me. While we talked, the other top contenders like Lei Chong, Su Tenglong, and Qin Sin finished drawing their numbers. Qin's son stepped off the stage, his eyes locking onto mine. I could practically hear him screaming internally. He had finished the Puppet Valley in 106 breaths, a feat that should have made him the star of the city. He thought he had finally stepped out of my shadow. But the moment I appeared, the spotlight shifted back to me. I had crushed his moment without even trying. "You're lucky we didn't meet this round," his eyes screamed. "Otherwise, I'd step on you in front of everyone to prove I'm the better man." The matches began. It was a brutal call to get the top 10. Most fights were short and violent. Lei Chong and Su Tunglong crushed their opponents with ease. Then came Qin's son. He fought Hong Wunyan, a talented 14-year-old from the Hong family. Hong was strong, but he was only at the 7th level of the pulse opening realm. Qin's son eventually overwhelmed him, securing his spot in the top 10. Jiang Yunlan followed, winning her match without breaking a sweat. Finally, it was my turn. The crowd leaned in. They didn't expect a masterpiece, but they were dying to see exactly how much strength I had left. A man with a broken dantian was supposed to be a cripple. They wanted to see the waste in action. I stepped onto the stage. Xiongyu followed, looking nervous for me. "Brother Futian, maybe we shouldn't use spirit energy to attack," she suggested softly. "Anything is fine." I smiled, gesturing for her to start. She moved quickly, her fists striking out like twin dragons. It was the Xiong family's dragon-slaying punch. I raised my palms to meet her. When her fists hit my hands, she gasped. It was like hitting a wall of solid iron. "Xiaoyu, your power delivery is off," I said, holding her fists in place. "The key to the dragon-slaying punch is the hidden force. Your stance is wrong, which is why your punch lacks the necessary impact." Her eyes widened. "Then, what should I do?" She pulled back, looking at me like a student eager for a lesson. "Your stance should be the dragon-shaped stance. Most people think it's just a visual pose, but that's where they're wrong." I started explaining the mechanics, even demonstrating the posture right there on the stage. The audience was stunned. Everyone else was fighting for their lives, but here we were, treating a high-stakes exam like a private tutoring session. Xiongyu adjusted her stance and tried again. This time, the power was different. I could see the realization dawn on her face as she broke through a bottleneck that had likely bothered her for months. "Good," I nodded. Her talent was actually quite high, better than the original Qin Xingyao, though not as good as the current one. I reached into my robe and pulled out a green pill. I had refined a few batches of emerald spirit pills before coming to the mountain today. "Xiaoyu, take this." Refining those emerald spirit pills before heading to the mountain was the right move. I handed the green pill to Xiongyu. She took it without hesitation, not even asking what it was. That kind of trust was rare. As soon as she swallowed it, her eyes snapped open. The medicinal power hit her like a tidal wave. "Brother Futian, this medicine, it's too precious," she whispered, her voice trembling. She knew exactly what it was the moment the energy began to spread through her meridians. "Xiaoyu, don't tell a soul about this pill," I said softly. She nodded quickly, her gaze lingering on me with deep gratitude. "I understand. Thank you, Brother Futian." She looked at the crowd, then back at me. "For this match, I forfeit." I didn't stop her. She needed to sit down and refine that pill immediately to break through her current bottleneck. "Be careful of Jiang Yunlan," she warned, leaning in close. "If you can't win, just give up early. Don't push yourself too hard." She walked off the stage, leaving everyone in the audience speechless. She didn't care about the exam anymore. She had something better. But up on the hillside, her father, Xiong Biyue, was turning a deep shade of purple. He was furious. He knew his daughter had a crush on me, but he never expected her to throw away a chance to join the Heavenly Sword sect just to give me a free pass. Jiang Zhinshan, Jiang Yunlan's father, couldn't help but twist the knife. "Brother Xiong, your daughter is certainly devoted." He chuckled, sounding fake and sympathetic. "It's a shame. With her talent, she could have easily made the top 5. To give it up for a waste like Qin Futian? Truly a tragedy." Xiong Buyue ignored him, but I could see his fists clenching. He was probably planning to lock Xiaoyu in her room for a month after this. The proctor, Yuan Hong, looked surprised as well. She hadn't expected the match to end in a forfeit, but she had to announce it. "Winner, Qin Futian. He advances to the top 10. The crowd erupted in whispers. Jiang Yunlan and Qin's son looked disappointed. They wanted to see me bleed, but instead, I had lucked my way into the next round. To them, I was just a dog with a lucky streak. Next came the drawing for the 5-on-5 matches. This was where things got serious. The first pair was Lei Chong against Wu Yunhao. Lei Chong looked relaxed. He was the stronger fighter. Wu Yunhao looked like he wanted to cry. He had been praying to draw me. In his mind, I was the only easy win left in the pool. In fact, everyone was looking at me like I was a golden ticket. They thought my shattered dantian meant I had no stamina. They thought I was a one-hit wonder who used up all my energy in the previous round. The second pair, Yiyu versus Su Tinglong. The crowd gasped at that one. Two heavyweights clashing early. The third pair, Jiang Yunlan versus Lu Xingyun. Jiang Yunlan looked annoyed. She didn't care about Lu Xingyun. She wanted to be the one to humiliate me on stage. She wanted to show the world that I was beneath her. The fourth pair, Su Kuei versus Qin Sun. And finally, the fifth pair, me against Gong Sun Hong. The moment my name was called, people started congratulating Gong Sun Hong like he'd already won. They saw me as a points delivery boy. But Gong Sun Hong didn't look happy. He frowned, his eyes darting toward me with hesitation, as if he were weighing a very difficult decision. As I walked past Qin Sun, he leaned in and hissed, "You got lucky again, Futian. I wanted to crush you myself so the clan would finally see I'm the real genius. It's a pity you'll lose to Gong Sun Hong before I get the chance." I didn't stop walking. I just gave him a thin smile. "Maybe not. We might still meet in the next round. I'll be waiting for you to try." The matches started immediately. Lei Chong and Wu Yunhao took the stage. There was no trash talk, just violence. Lei Chong moved like a bolt of lightning, his heavy blade cutting through the air with terrifying speed. Wu Yunhao fought back with a silver dragon-patterned spear, his movements fluid and fierce. It was a clash of raw power, but Lei Chong's 9th-level cultivation was simply too much. Every time their weapons collided, the shockwave echoed through the arena. It was clear who would win, but I wasn't watching them. I was looking at the others, waiting for my turn to show them exactly what a waste could do. The suppression was immediate. Lei Chong moved with a savage efficiency that Wu Yunhao couldn't match. Finally, Lei Chong saw his opening. He shifted his weight, his eyes locking onto his target. It was time for his signature move, the Thunder Punishment Blade technique. "Thunder Slash," he roared. He lunged upward, leaping high into the air. The heavy blade came crashing down with the force of a collapsing mountain. A sharp crack echoed through the arena as streaks of visible lightning danced along the steel. The blade glowed with a blinding, electric light. Wu Yunhao's face paled. He realized he had overextended his spear. Desperate, he yanked the weapon back and swung it horizontally to block. Clang! The sound of metal meeting metal was deafening. I heard a muffled groan from the stage as Wu Yunhao's spear was ripped from his hands, spinning through the air. The webbing of his thumb had been torn open by the impact, blood spraying across the stone. Before he could even blink, the edge of Lei Chong's blade was resting right against his forehead. Lei Chong stopped. He didn't finish it. "Brother Yunhao, I believe that's enough," Lei Chong said calmly. Wu Yunhao took a shaky breath, his forehead drenched in a cold sweat. He swallowed hard and cupped his hands in a gesture of respect. "Thank you for sparing me, Brother Lei. I admit defeat. I am no match for you." The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. It was a clean, decisive victory, handled with the kind of grace you don't often see in these circles. The second match followed quickly, Yiyu versus Su Tinglong. This was the heavyweight bout of the round. Before they even stepped up, the atmosphere was electric. This was the fight everyone wanted to see, the one where the outcome was a total coin flip. They stepped onto the stage, exchanged a brief, curt nod, and then the world exploded into motion. Yiyu used a blade as well, though it was smaller and lighter than Lei Chong's. He didn't rely on raw power. His movements were fluid, elegant, and incredibly fast. Every strike was a blur of silver. Su Tinglong fought with a massive halberd. His style was similar to Wu Yunhao's, but within seconds, it was clear he was on a completely different level. The two of them traded blows with terrifying intensity. 10 rounds turned into 50, then 100. "Young master," a voice whispered beside me. It was Xiao Yao. She was watching the stage with wide, curious eyes. Now that she had started her own path as a cultivator, she was fascinated by the high-level combat. Why can Lei Chong and the others project their spiritual energy outside their bodies? I thought only those in the sea realm could do that. I gave her a small smile. Normally, you're right. You need a stabilized chi C to project energy. But these people aren't your average cultivators. At least, not by the standards of Liangzhou. They are the top geniuses here. At the 9th level of the pulse opening realm, their sheer talent allows them to push their limits. I pointed toward the stage as Su Tunglong swung his halberd. Plus, high-grade martial arts help. They're all using earth-grade techniques. When you use a technique of that caliber, projecting energy becomes much easier. Xiao Yao nodded, her expression one of sudden realization. I see. Thank you, young master. On the stage, the fight reached its breaking point. Neither man was holding back anymore. Su Tunglong's halberd carved brilliant arcs of light through the air, while Yi Yu's blade created a canopy of shimmering steel that seemed to cover the sky. By the end, both were covered in blood. Their clothes were shredded, and their bodies were a map of deep cuts and bruises. It was brutal. In the final exchange, Su Tunglong managed to find a half-step advantage. He connected with a devastating strike that sent Yi Yu flying off the stage. Su Tunglong won, but he was barely standing. The Su family immediately rushed their best healers to him, feeding him rare pills to stabilize his condition. If he recovered, he'd fight in the next round. If not, he'd settle for his current rank. Being in the top 5 already guaranteed him a spot as an outer disciple, which was a victory in itself for his family. Then came the third match, Jiang Yunlan versus Lu Xingyun. Miss Yunlan, Lu Xingyun said as he stepped onto the stage. He bowed politely, trying to be a gentleman. I know I am not your equal. I only ask that you be gentle with me. Jiang Yunlan didn't even look him in the eye. Her face was a mask of cold indifference. Just fight, she said. The bluntness of her response stung. I saw a flash of anger in Lu Xingyun's eyes. He stopped talking and drew his longsword. It moved like a spirit snake, darting forward with a series of quick, watery ripples of sword chi. Jiang Yunlan didn't dodge. As the sword chi reached her, she reached out with a delicate hand and flicked the air. In a heartbeat, she was inside his guard. Lu Xingyun panicked, swinging his blade horizontally to catch her. Jiang Yunlan's eyes sharpened. She reached out and flicked the side of his blade with one finger. Ting! The 3-foot sword vibrated violently, looking like a snake that had gone mad. It was ripped from Lu Xingyun's grip and sent clattering across the stone. Before he could react, she slammed her palm into his chest. Lu Xingyun coughed up a spray of blood and was sent spiraling off the stage, crashing hard into the dirt below. Pathetic, Jiang Yunlan muttered. Lu Xingyun lay on the ground, staring up at her with gritted teeth. He knew he was weaker, but her complete lack of respect hurt more than the blow to his chest. She hadn't given him an ounce of face. As Jiang Yunlan walked off the stage, she passed right by me. She paused for a second, tilting her head just enough to catch my eye. Qin Futian, she said, her voice like ice. You're up next. I hope you don't lose too embarrassingly.